and loss, and my memory pays the cost, and no dancers spin their lives, and inside the loving dies, and it's a why I can't get a hold of. Well, it's a why the trail gets colder. Well, sometimes I'm right behind you, but I can never find you. Wordless, senseless, speechless, intenseness, sweeping over me, and I'm lost at sea. And time will show me what I need to be. If I'm not with you, then what else could I do? So long and still I'm searching. So fast the time is turning. Always one more reminder of how I just can't find her. It's when I feel you touch me. It's when I feel I can't be. It's when I've lost my bearings. That's when I am despairing. Wordless, senseless, speechless, intenseness, sweeping over me, and I'm lost at sea. And time will show me what I need to be. If I'm not with you, then what else could I do?
Yes, indeed. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome back to our channel. Welcome to a special broadcast, one of my favorite events that we do every year. And this, of course, is the Arvocalists doing the I think one of the best stories ever written by one of my favorite authors, and this is A Christmas Carol. Very excited to do this. I think this is, we said, maybe our 4th year of doing it, so I'm super excited about that, and that'll be great. Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that, dude. No problem, man. I understand. Hopefully we'll see you there soon. It'll be great. But anyway, so we have got the Arvocalists back with us, which I'm very excited about, for A Christmas Carol. This one, for those of you who watched the last couple of years, we did not actually get this time the full, unexpurgated, all the way soup to nuts, beginning to end, because we decided that that was probably a bad idea, because it took a long time and we would all like to get to bed at some point. So instead, we are using the version that Charles Dickens himself used for public readings. So anything that's abridged here or removed is because Mr. Dickens himself wanted to do that, and we figure if it's good enough for Dickens, you know, it's good enough for everyone, and you know, all that sort of thing. So I've already talked about this, so I'm not going to go into great detail about this part of things, but again, please make sure to follow the channel, check out the YouTube, the Discord, the Twitter. Please retweet the stream, ! Arv tweets for that. Please check out as well our website, arvineleron.com. That would be much appreciated. Please support us financially by checking out the Patreon, ! Arvtreon. Please make sure to check out as well the sub button, which is right above that video window, and of course !Arvshop, where you can get merchandise, including Adventure to Middle-earth stuff with Terry Toons doing the illustrations, and of course Infinity and Beyond, which is currently playing Curse of Strahd. Soon we hope to have Esper Genesis stuff there as well. But today we have got for you the super awesome, incredibly exciting, and amazing Arvocalists. And so I'm going to unmute myself so they know that we are ready to go. And then I'm going to unmute them. And then I'm going to head on over to...
Whoa. God bless us all, everyone. There.
All right, good
night.
Talk to you guys next year.
All right. So here we are. And,
Scrooge, you did it again.
yes, we are joined by everyone here. You can see that we have got with us, of course, Tren, Rob, Zach, and Russ will be playing Charles Dickens today. So that's how that works. No, that is not the case. We do, of course, not have absolutely everybody.
Russ,
Yeah, Russ can't do it. Again, we were trying to figure out the time frame, but we got a little unlucky with the Tuesdays because Tuesday is the 24th and the 31st, and like it didn't fit super well this particular time. But so unfortunately,
Tuesday
Russ will
does not
be with
come
us.
but once a year. It
Exactly.
comes every week.
It comes once a week.
And
So
no
Russ,
one is
unfortunately,
ever happy to see it.
So Russ is unfortunately not going to be able to join us, and also Dot was going to join us, and then had a big podcast recording that she forgot about, which was happening because she's super busy too. So she unfortunately cannot do it either, unfortunately. So Rob and Zach from our regular group are here, but also coming back, returning to his role. His returning to his place, the honorable place of everything. I'm just going to keep going until okay, good, there it is. I was just waiting until Trent was like, "What are you doing?" Is Mr. Trendane Sparks, who is back with us again for his fourth go around on this happy production. Welcome, Tren.
Back
Good
again,
to see you, man. I asked this before, but I'll just ask you publicly: a little more rested at all? Maybe a bit.
I was.
You were. Not now.
Now I'm getting sleepy again, so we better get through this quick.
You better hurry it up. Tren is a voice actor, and is anything you want to highlight in terms of current voice projects, perhaps, Tren, that you'd like to speak about?
I heard that Tren is voicing characters in A Christmas Carol soon.
Ooh, really? That's
that's coming up.
Blimey.
Yeah.
That's what they say, right?
Yeah.
I think so, but depends on the character.
Depends on how Brexit goes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
I think all of the rest of the things that I'm working on are covered with NDA, so I can't really talk about.
Oh, great.
So
you can tell us. Okay,
I can. I'm not going to.
It would be a bad idea.
But
He's gonna have to take his non-word for it.
Very, very well. Well, it is a great pleasure to have Tren back with us. And in case
Keep your secrets.
In case people are curious, exactly. But there's something you've been officially labeled as a disturber of the peace. All right. So Trendane today will be playing the part of Part 1, narrator. Part 3, narrator. Also, Trendane will be playing Fezziwig, Bob Cratchit, Charity Gentleman, and Mrs. Dilber. We were very excited
Always
in particular
Fezziwig.
about the Mrs. Dilber route. That was the
always
exciting
Fezziwig because I'm fat.
Again, we tried to explain to him it's because he dominated on the dance floor, and he's like, I will never even get on a dance floor except for the blah, blah, blah. So anyway, but Trent is with us. I'm very excited about it. I'm also excited to have, of course, Mr. GC Darkside Rob with us, who is right there. Rob, welcome,
It's very
welcome.
close to all of you right now because I can never tell exactly which part of the frame that Arv is going to set up for the works of his I didn't want to say the word interface twice, so I couldn't think of another
Interface
word at
of
time.
interface.
The interface of the interfacing of the interfacials. What? That's a sorry.
Interface of the
Troubling.
interface.
Look it up on Wikipedia. It's fine. Anyway, what? Hi.
What?
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy
holidays.
Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy Festivus. Happy everything in between, this way, that way, and the other ways. All 360 of them. I'm your host, Master Ceremony Darkside Rob. And ceremonies. I don't know why I made that singular. But yeah, I'm here tonight doing this wonderful piece again. We're doing another different, altogether good version of
Yes.
it. You've seen the short version. You've seen the long version. Now see
the medium version. I mean, it's a bridge by Charles Dickens himself. Listen, I mean, I mean, that
we're having
guy's a
all the
hack.
flavors of the steak that is A Christmas Carol.
Indeed.
But yeah, I'm a Twitchcaster, professional video editor, maker of silly voices into microphones such as this, and music producer, composer, and all that other stuff. Come check out my channel sometime if you want to see some of my silliness. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to reading a lot.
It's going to be good.
So
Rob
let's
will
go.
be playing today, narrator,
Yes.
part 3. Narrator, everything else after part 3.
But
Rob will be playing literally every ghost of Christmas
Yes.
past, present, future, also Marley, and he'll be playing Old Joe. We
But
feel that Old Joe
am
is
but an amateur. We here have a true famous actress here with us tonight. Would the lady be so kind as to introduce herself?
That's true. Yes, introduce yourself, Zach.
No, I was talking about your daughter.
Oh. I was going to introduce Zach. He was the one doing the female voice.
We're gonna introduce Zach too, but you
Well, yes,
just
my
had her
daughter
like
is here.
she
My
had
child
her
is-
show that she
did.
you know
She did.
so
Well, she
proud
was
of.
here
What
earlier
show
on
was
today
this?
and we talked about
I'm
it.
unaware.
Oh, she played in she played Lieutenant Ward and a servant in Annie, the musical Annie, and she did an excellent
okay,
job.
very
She also was one of the few and proud to work with the dog, Sandy, whose real name was Louie. And she did a great job and
You guys dealt with a live dog? Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Live
we
dog.
Had a
That's-
live dog.
live
It was-
trained dog.
It
Yep.
was kind of horrible because we had, I think that's the one time that this dog ever got like 400 treats in one day because
Oh my gosh.
Those dogs, they know the way. They know that they have the ways of the
Yep.
force when it comes to getting the
show
treats.
that
This is
Louis
the
had
way.
been in. And Louis, he's supposed to get a scarf at one point, so he walks on stage and then turns around and walks back. And he just comes so close to the scarf, like 1 inch, and just walks back.
There's no treat there.
There's no
Perfect.
treat. Like what is this?
And then like the curtain closes, and literally everybody backstage is just disappointed. We're just all looking at each other.
Here's the thing you're going to learn about as you progress with your acting career, though. All actors work exactly the same way. It's
You need to
there's
give
no
them at
treat
least
here. I'm
400
going back to my
treats.
trailer.
We didn't get.
I'll be in my green room.
Our
Treats.
treat was that we had to sit in a room that was way too loud, and we only get to have an intermission that was 10 minutes long, and only got to eat
10
2
minutes.
of those minutes.
Yeah, but you got standing ovations and
Yeah, okay, I got a standing ovation.
But it
For
was
love
great.
of the craft, right?
She did.
That's,
She got
that's
assigned
what we
on the
all do
poster.
this for.
It was great
It's okay.
stuff. But anyway,
It
so
pays with exposure. It's fine.
it was exactly. But anyway, she did a great job. I was very
God.
proud of her and all that good stuff.
Oh,
So
for exposure.
moving right along, though, let me introduce the last person that we will have here today with us, and that, of course, is the spectacular, wonderful Mr. Zach Clay. Zach,
Yes.
how are you? How's life in the world and the universe with you, sir?
I am great. Life and the world and the universe are great in my realm. I am waiting for the very exciting arrival of the year of 2020 because it's going to be a great year. And I'm
God,
planning-
I hope so.
Yes, I know so. And I'm planning all sorts of things stream wise and YouTube wise and so on. And I am excited to come back for year 2 of continuing this tradition, or year 2 for me, I should say. Definite. What is this for you guys? Year 5
I
or
think we
4
said
now?
year 4 or 5. Yeah, I think it's 4.
I think this is
but,
4 for
uh,
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very excited, and I'd also like to see what Dickens's cut to this version is compared to last year too.
Yeah,
Very good.
it was kind of interesting as I was looking it over because I wanted to see, and it seemed like there were a couple things that we were like, oh, but then I think as Rob said, like, well, you got to cut something, like when the story's got lots
Yeah.
of great stuff, you have to cut something. So
I love that we read the full version, and if we didn't start at 9:00 at night, I would be totally down to read it again. But we need to like start that stuff at like
yeah,
4
exactly,
in the
which is just
afternoon.
really hard to do right. Exactly.
Because otherwise, by the last ghost, I was like, and this is how fast I'm going to read this week. So I really want to get that out of this because it's about 12 o'clock at night. I really want to go to sleep now. So it's like,
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a lot.
I totally agree. Okay. So with all that said, though, we are ready to go with A Christmas Carol. And this is, again, as I said, abridged by Charles Dickens.
wait, this isn't Blade Runner? Damn it.
It's Blade Runner. That's the abridgment. The Blade Runner actually
Oh, I thought
was
we were
originally
reading
A Christmas Carol.
A
and it
Christmas
became
Story.
A Christmas Story.
Oh, okay.
You triple dog dared you. Charles Dickens is with us, of course, at the bottom row. So thank you, Mr. Dickens, for this work.
Do misers dream of steampunk sheep?
Exactly. And yeah, we've got those. There's good. Excellent. Okay, that all seems to work. All right, gentlemen. So the time has come. Oh, and I forgot to mention that Zach will be playing the roles of Scrooge, the charwoman, and, assuming that my daughter has gone to bed by then, Turkey Kid. If my daughter has not gone to bed, then I will recommend my daughter, who is actually the age of the Turkey Kid, to play the Turkey Kid. But that's assuming that she's awake.
By all means.
So that's what we're looking at. And
You're
I will
moving up in
be-
the world, kid.
And I will be part 2, the narrator part 2. I will play Fred the nephew and Mrs. Cratchit for her 2 lines, or whatever it actually is. So, all right. And with that said, chat, here we go. The time has come for A Christmas Carol. He starts with this epigram. I have endeavored in this ghostly little book to raise the ghost of an idea which shall not put my readers out of humor with themselves, with each other, with the season, or with me. May it haunt their houses pleasantly, and no one wish to lay it. Their faithful friend and servant, C.D., December 1843. Mr. Sparks.
A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Marley was dead to begin with. There is no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it. And Scrooge's name was good upon the change for anything he chose to put his hand to. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Scrooge knew he was dead? Of course he did. How could it be otherwise? Scrooge and he were partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole person thing. Now this is off to a great start. His sole administrator, his sole assign, his sole residuary legatee. I am losing my mind. Not even a paragraph in. His sole friend and his sole mourner. Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name, however. There it yet stood, years afterward, above the warehouse door, Scrooge and Marley. The firm was known as Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes people new to the business called Scrooge Scrooge, and sometimes Marley. He answered to both names. It was all the same to him. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, was Scrooge. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. External heat and cold had little influence on him. No warmth could warm, no cold could chill him. No wind that blew was bitterer than he. No falling snow was more intent upon its purpose, no pelting rain less open to entreaty. Foul weather didn't know where to have him. The heaviest rain and snow and hail and sleet could boast of the advantage over him in only one respect. They often came down handsomely, and Scrooge never did. Nobody ever stopped him in the street to say with gladsome looks, "My dear Scrooge, how are you? When will you come and see me?" No
Never.
beggars never. No beggars implored him to bestow a trifle. No children asked him what it was o'clock. No man or woman ever once in his life inquired the way to such and such a place of Scrooge. Even the blind men's dogs appeared to know him, and when they saw him coming on, would tug their owners into doorways and up courts, and then would wag their tails as though they say, "No eye at all is better than the evil eye, Dark Master." But what did Scrooge care? It was the very thing he liked, to edge his way along the crowded paths of life, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance. Was what the knowing ones once called nuts to Scrooge. But once upon a time, yes, that is what it says. Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, upon a Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting, foggy weather, and the city blocks had only just gone 3. That's not what it says. It says clocks had only just gone 3. But It was quite dark already because daylight savings time is stupid. The door of Scrooge's counting house was open. Maybe I shouldn't read anything. Maybe I should just go back to sleep. That he might keep his eye. Yes, exactly. That he might keep his eye upon his clerk, who, in a dismal little cell beyond, a sort of tank, was copying letters. Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so very much smaller that it looked like one coal. But he couldn't replenish it, for Scrooge kept the coal box in his own room. And so surely as the clerk came in with the shovel, the master predicted that it would be necessary for them to part. Wherefore the clerk put on his white comforter and tried to warm himself at the candle, which is not going to work because those are just not good. In which effort, not being a man of strong imagination, he fails. Imagination doesn't help really warm you up.
Not at all. A Merry Christmas, Uncle. God save you,
cried a cheerful voice. It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, who came upon him so quickly that this was the first first intimation Scrooge had Scrooge had of his approach.
Bah,
said Scrooge.
Humbug.
Oh, Christmas a humbug, Uncle. Oh, you don't mean that, I'm sure.
I do. Out upon Merry Christmas. What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer? A time for balancing your books and having every item in them through a round dozen of months presented dead against you? If I had my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. He should.
Uncle.
Nephew, keep Christmas in your own way, and let me keep it in mine.
Keep it? But you don't keep it.
Let me leave it alone, then. Much good may it do to you. Much good it has ever done you.
Well, there are many things from which I might have derived good, by which I have not profited, I dare say, Christmas among the rest. But I'm sure I've always thought of Christmas time when it has come round, apart from the veneration due to its sacred origin, if anything belonging to it can be apart from that, as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time, the only time I know of in the long calendar of the year, when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely, and to think of people below them as if they really were fellow travelers to the grave, and not another race of creatures bound on other journeys. And therefore, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good, and will do me good, and I say God bless it.
The clerk in the tank involuntarily applauded.
Let me hear another sound from you,
said Scrooge.
And you'll keep your Christmas by losing your situation. You're quite a powerful speaker, sir,
he added, turning to his nephew.
I wonder you don't go into Parliament.
Oh, don't be angry, Uncle. Come, dine with us tomorrow.
Scrooge said that he would see him. Yes, indeed he did. He went the whole length. Yes, that is what it said. He went the whole length of the expression and said that he would see him in that extremity first.
But why? cried
Scrooge's. Why, Scrooge's nephew?
Why?
I'm glad I did.
Why did you get married?
Because I fell in love?
Because you fell in love,
growled Scrooge, as if that were the only one thing in the world more ridiculous than a Merry Christmas.
Good afternoon.
Nay, Uncle, but you never came to see me before that happened. Why give it as a reason for not coming now?
Good afternoon.
I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why cannot we be friends?
Good afternoon.
I am sorry with all my heart to find you so resolute. We have never had any quarrel to which I have been a party. But I have made the trial an homage to Christmas, and I'll keep my Christmas humor to the last. So, a Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year.
Do I need to say it again?
Apparently.
Come
As
on,
in
Uncle, one more time for the road.
Really angrily, like, get out!
Apparently, these cuts aren't very good.
I've only noticed one misspelling so far. So
Yeah.
Still your lines.
Oh, I said good afternoon one
Oh,
more
did
time.
you?
I-
One more time.
I didn't hear it. I guess we know that. His nephew left the room without an angry word, notwithstanding. The clerk, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let 2 other people in. They were portly gentlemen, pleasant to behold, and now stood with their hats off in Scrooge's office. They had books and papers in their hands and bowed to him. I'm one of these gentlemen, right?
Indeed you are.
Am I the other one of these gentlemen?
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
Which one do you want?
I'll start.
Okay, good.
Scrooge and Marley's, I believe.
Said one of the gentlemen, referring to his list.
Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley?
Mr. Marley has been dead these 7 years. He died 7 years ago this very night.
At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge,
Said the gentleman, taking up a pen.
it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute, who suffer greatly at the present time. Many thousands are in want of common necessaries. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts. Sir.
Yeah, I was going to say,
air.
not
I don't-
air.
Comforts. They want. Give these people air.
They cannot even
Yes.
breathe.
One
Give
of
these
the
people
common-
air, Coigan.
Are there no prisons?
Plenty of prison. I don't know if one of these are switching back and forth yet. Do you want me to just keep going? I'll just keep going.
I think it specifies later.
Okay. Plenty of prisons, but under the impression that they scarcely furnish Christian cheer of mind or body to the unoffending multitude. A few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. We chose this time because it is a time, of all others, when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall I put you down for?
Nothing.
Oh, you wish to be anonymous.
I wish to be left alone. Since you ask me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the prisons and the workhouses. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there.
Many can't go there, and many would rather die.
If they would rather die, they had better do it. Decrease the surplus population.
At length, okay, maybe there is no differentiation between the two, and I've just allowed you to
Could have been just the one of the gentlemen who only spoke. So.
possible, right?
They're twins. It's fine.
Like the hour of shutting up the person who's reading, and the counting house arrived. With an ill will, Scrooge, dismounting from his stool, tacitly admitted the fact that is not what that said. Fact to the expectant clerk in the tank, who instantly snuffed his candle out and put on his hat.
And I think this is me.
It is.
You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose.
I think that's you, Trent, doing Bob Cratchit.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yep.
If quite convenient, sir.
It is not convenient, and it's not fair. If I was to stop half a crown for it, You think yourself mightily ill-used, I'll be bound.
Yes, sir.
And yet you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wages for no work.
It's only once a year, sir.
A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. But I suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the earlier next morning.
The clerk promised that he would, and Scrooge walked out with a growl. The office was closed in a twinkling, and the clerk, with the long ends of his white comforter dangling below his waist, for he boasted no greatcoat, went down a slide. He did. All right, fine. Oh, yes, he did.
Slide.
At the end of the at the end of a great lane of boys, 20 times in honor of its being Christmas Eve, and then ran home as hard as he could pelt to play at blind man's bluff. Scrooge took his melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern, having read all the newspapers and beguiled the rest of the evening with his banker's book, went home to bed. He lived in chambers which had once belonged to his deceased partner. They were a gloomy suite of rooms in a lowering pile of a building up a yard. The building was old enough now and dreary enough, for nobody lived in it but Scrooge, and the other rooms being all let out as offices. Now, it is a fact that there was nothing at all particular. I am going straight for Doctor Who Dickens with this. There was nothing at all particular about the knocker on the door of this house, except that it was very large. Also, that Scrooge had seen it night and morning during his whole residence in that place. Also, that Scrooge had as little of what is called fancy about him as any man in the city of London. And yet Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker, without its undergoing any intermediate process of change, not a knocker, but Marley's face. I love that scene. As Scrooge looked fixedly at this phenomenon, it was a knocker again. And he said,
Oh, there's a line you missed.
Missed Marley's face.
Marley's face. Like I'm sure I said at some point in years past, with a dismal.
The line ended the same way that it started. That's
right. Yes. Like a red lobster with all you can eat crab. No. Sorry, I'm very, very.
No, it
hungry.
did not, Marley. No, it did not.
Yeah, but I'm really hungry. Like a bad lobster in a dark cellar.
Call of Cthulhu.
Yes. Anyway, it was not angry or ferocious, but it looked at Scrooge as Marley used to look, with ghostly spectacles turned up upon its ghostly forehead, not unlike this, which I shouldn't have done. And then, as Scrooge looked fixedly, as I previously said, at this phenomenon, it was a knocker again. And he said,
Pooh. Pooh. I have to pooh.
No,
Right.
I don't. Pooh.
there are chamber pots. Are there no chamber pots? And closed the door with a bang. The sound resounded through the house like thunder. Every room above, every cask in the wines. Why does he get casks of wine and I don't? Anyway, I've been craving wine lately. Anyway, in the wine, because it's a wine, never mind. Wine merchant's cellar below appeared to have a separate peal of echoes of its own. Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes. He fastened the door and walked across the hall and up the stairs, slowly too, trimming his candle as he went. Up Scrooge went. Up Scrooge went, not carrying a button for it being dark. Darkness is cheap, and Scrooge liked it. So we go from present tense in the beginning of the sentence to past tense, whatever. But before he shut his heavy door, he walked through his rooms to see that all was right. He had just enough recollection of the face to desire to do what? Yes, that's what I was saying. Sitting room, bedroom, lumber room, all as they should be. Nobody under the table, nobody under the sofa. A small fire in the grate, spoon and basin ready. And the little saucepan, as they would say in England, of gruel. Scrooge had a coal in his head upon the hob. Nobody under the bed, nobody in the closet, nobody in his dressing gown, except soon to be him, which was hanging up in a suspicious attitude against the wall. Lumber room as usual, which we already mentioned. Old fire guard, old shoes, 2 fish baskets, washing stand on 3 legs, and a poker. Quite satisfied, he closed his door and locked himself in. Double locked himself in, which was not his custom. Thus secured against surprise, he took off his cravat, put on his dressing gown, as I said he would earlier, and slippers and his night, and sat down before the very low fire to take his gruel. As he threw his head back in his chair, no, not like that, his glance happened to rest upon a bell, a disused bell, that hung in the room and communicated for some purpose now forgotten with the chamber of the highest story of the building. It was with great astonishment. Was somebody about to say something? No? Okay, we'll continue. And with a strange, inexplicable dread that, as he looked, he saw this bell began to swing. Soon it rang out loudly and did... no, that's not what it says. Let's try that again. And so did every bell in the house, which one would presume that there might be others. This was succeeded by a clanking noise. Clearly the Cybermen were attacked. No. Deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks in the wine merchant's cellar. I want wine. Then he heard the noise, much louder, on the floors below. Then coming up the stairs, then coming straight towards his door. It came on through the heavy door like nothing was in the way. Anyway. And a specter passed into the room before his eyes, and upon its coming in, the dying flame leaped up as though it cried, I know him, Marley's ghost. But with flame voice. The same face, very same. Marley in his pigtail, usual waistcoat, tights, and boots. His tights were fashionable then. His body was transparent, so that Scrooge, observing him and looking through his waistcoat, could see the 2 buttons on his coat behind. Scrooge had often heard it said that Marley had no bowels, but he had never believed it until now. No, nor did he believe it even now, even though he could see through them, as we previously said. Though he looked the phantom through and through and saw it standing before him, though he felt the chilling influence of its death-cold eyes, and noticed the very texture of the folded kerchief bound, yes, exactly, bound about its head and chin. He was still incredulous.
How now?
Said Scrooge, caustic and cold as ever.
What do you want with me?
Much.
Marley's voice. No doubt about it.
Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
Who were you then?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
Can you sit down?
I can.
Do it then.
Scrooge asked the question because he didn't know whether a ghost so transparent might find himself in a condition to take a chair, and felt that in the event of its being impossible, it might involve the necessity of an embarrassing explanation. But the ghost sat down on the opposite side of the fireplace, as if he were quite used to it.
You don't believe in me.
I don't.
What evidence would you have of my reality? beyond that of your senses.
I don't know.
Why do you doubt your senses?
Because a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheat. You may be an undigested bit of beef, maybe a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of underdone potato. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are.
Scrooge was not much in the habit of cracking jokes, nor did he feel in his heart by any means waggish then. The truth is that he tried to be smart as a means of distracting his own attention and keeping down his horror. But how much greater was his horror when the phantom, taking off the bandage round its head, as if it were too warm to wear indoors, its lower jaw dropped down on its breast.
Mercy! Dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me? Why do spirits walk the earth, and why do they come to me?
It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow man and travel far and wide. And if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. I cannot tell you all I would. A very little more is permitted to me. I cannot rest. I cannot stay. I cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never walked beyond our counting house. Mark me in life. My spirit never roved beyond the narrow limits of our money change. Sorry, sometimes that comes out of joint.
It's understandable.
And weary journeys lie before me.
7 years dead. And traveling all the time. You travel fast?
On the wings of the wind, the wind, the wind,
The wind.
the wind.
You might have got over a great quantity of ground in 7 years.
Oh, blind man, blind man! Not to know that ages of incessant labor by immortal creatures. For this earth must pass into eternity before the good of which it is susceptible is all developed. Not to know that any Christian spirit, working kindly in its little sphere, whatever it may be, will find its mortal life too short for its vast means of usefulness. Not to know that no space of regret can make amends for one life's opportunities misused. Yet I was like this man. I was like this man.
But you were always a good man of business, Jacob.
Faltered Scrooge, who now began to apply this to himself.
Business.
cried the ghost, wringing its hands again.
Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business.
Scrooge was very much dismayed to hear the spectre going on at this rate, and began to quake exceedingly.
Hear me. My time is nearly gone.
I will, but please don't be hard upon me. Don't be flowery, Jacob, pray.
I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate. A chance and hope of my procuring Ebenezer.
You were always a good friend to me. Thank ye.
You will be haunted by 3 spirits.
I take it back. Don't thank ye.
Yeah. Yes.
What is that? That's the chance and hope you mentioned, Jacob. I think I'd rather not.
Without their visits, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first tomorrow night when the bell tolls 1. Expect the second on the next night at the same hour. The third upon the next night when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more, and look that, for your own sake, you remember what has passed between us.
It walked backward from him, and at every step it took, the window raised itself a little, so that when the apparition reached it, it was wide open. Like that, yes. Scrooge closed the window and examined the door by which the ghost had entered. It was double locked, as he had locked it with his own hands, and the bolts were undisturbed. Scrooge tried to say,
Humbug.
but stopped at the first syllable. Shut up! There, I promised my housemate I'd say that tonight. And being, from the emotion he had undergone, or the fatigues of the day, or his glimpse of the invisible world, or the dull conversation of the ghost, or lateness of the hour, much in need of repose, he went straight to bed, without undressing, which bugs me. I just get bound up in the shower, and fell asleep on the instant.
Oh yes, quick interlude to show Bob Cratchit
On a slide. Whee!
Oh yes, that is amazing.
Nice.
I love it.
the first of the 3 spirits.
The first of the 3 Johns.
When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark that, looking out of bed, He could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber, until suddenly the church clock tolled a deep, dull, hollow, melancholy 1. Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn aside by a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man viewed through some supernatural medium which gave him the appearance of having receded from the view and being diminished to a child's proportions. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white as if with age, and yet the face had not a wrinkle in it, and the tenderest bloom was on the skin. It held a branch of fresh green holly in its hand, and, in singular contradiction of that wintry emblem, had its dress trimmed with summer flowers. But the strangest thing about it was that from the crown of its head there sprung a bright clear jet of light by which all this was visible, and which was doubtless the occasion of its using, in its duller moments, a great extinguisher for a cap, which it now held under its arm.
Are you the spirit, sir, whose coming was foretold to me?
I am.
Who and what are you?
I'm the ghost of Christmas past.
Like, long past?
No, your past. The things that you will see with me are shadows of the things that have been. They will have no consciousness of us.
Scrooge then made bold to inquire what business brought him there.
Your welfare. Rise and walk with me.
It would have been in vain for Scrooge to plead that the weather and the hour were not adapted to pedestrian purposes, that bed was warm and the thermometer a long way below freezing, that he was clad but lightly in his slippers, dressing gown, and nightcap, and that he had a cold upon him at that time. The grasp, though gentle as a woman's hand, was not to be resisted. He rose, but finding that the spirit made towards the window, clasped its robe in supplication.
I am immortal and liable to fall.
Bear a touch of my hand there,
said the spirit, laying it upon his heart.
and you shall be upheld in more than this.
As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood in the busy thoroughfares of a city. It was made plain enough by the dressings of the shops that here, too, it was Christmas time. The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door, and asked Scrooge if he knew it.
Know it? Was I apprenticed here?
They went in. At sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig sitting behind such a high desk that, if he had been 2 inches taller, he must have knocked his head against the ceiling, Scrooge cried in great excitement,
Why, it's old Fezziwig, bless his heart. It's Fezziwig alive again.
Old Fezziwig laid down his pen and looked up at the clock, which pointed to the hour of 7. He rubbed his hands, adjusted his capacious waistcoat, laughed all over himself from his shoes to his organ of benevolence, and called out in a comfortable, oily, rich, fat, dominating the dance floor, jovial voice,
Yo-ho there! Ebenezer! Dick!
A living and moving picture of Scrooge's former self, a young man, came briskly in, accompanied by his fellow prentice.
Dick Wilkins, to be sure,
said Scrooge to the ghost.
My old fellow prentice, bless me, yes, there he is. He was very much attached to me, was Dick. Poor Dick, dear, dear.
Yo-ho, my boys!
Said Fezziwig.
No more work tonight, Christmas Eve, Dick. Christmas, Ebenezer. Let's have the shutters up before a man can say, Jack Robinson! Clear away, my lads. Let's have lots of room here.
Clear away? Well, there was nothing they wouldn't have cleared away, or couldn't have cleared away with old Fezziwig looking on. It was done in a minute. Every movable was packed off, as if it were dismissed from public life forevermore. The floor was swept and watered, the lamps were trimmed, fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. In came a fiddler with a music book, and went up to the lofty desk, and made an orchestra of it, and tuned like 50 stomach aches. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast substantial smile. In came the 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In came the 6 young followers whose hearts they broke. In came all the young men and women employed in the business. In came the housemaid with her cousin the baker. In came the cook with her brother's particular friend the milkman. In they all came, one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly, some pushing, some pulling. In they all came, anyhow and everywow. Away they all went, 20 couple at once, hands half round and back again the other way, down the middle and up again, round and round in various stages of affectionate grouping, old top couple always turning up in the wrong place, new top couples starting off again as soon as they got there, all top couples at last and not a bottom one to help them. When this result was brought about, old Fezziwig, clapping his hands to stop the dance, cried out,
Well done.
and the fiddler plunged his hot face into a pot of porter especially provided for that purpose. There were more dances, and there were forfeits, and more dances, and there was cake, and there was a great piece of cold roast, and there was a great piece of cold boiled, and there were mince pies and plenty of beer. But the great effect of the evening came after the roast and boiled, when the fiddler struck up Sir Roger de Coverley. Then old Fezziwig stood out to dominate with Mrs. Fezziwig. Top couple, too, with a good stiff piece of work cut out for them. 3 or 4 and 20 pair of partners. People like Kilobyte, who resubbed to the channel and were greatly honored. People who were not to be trifled with. People who would dance and had no notion of walking. But if they had been twice as many, 4 times, old Fezziwig would have been a match for them, and so would Mrs. Fezziwig. As to her, she was worthy to be his partner in every sense of the term. A positive light appeared to issue from Fezziwig's calves. They shone in every part of the dance. You couldn't have predicted at any given time what would become of them next. And when old Fezziwig and Mrs. Fezziwig had gone all through the dance, advance and retire, turn your partner, bow and curtsy, corkscrew, thread the needle, and back again to your place, Fezziwig cut so deftly that he appeared to wink with his legs. When the clock struck 11, this domestic ball broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig took their stations, one on either side the door, and shaking hands with every person individually as he or she went out, wished him or her a Merry Christmas. When everybody had retired but the 2 prentices, they did the same to them, and thus the cheerful voices died away, and the lads were left to their beds, which were under a counter in the back shop.
A small matter,
said the ghost,
to make these silly folks so full of gratitude. He spent but a few pounds of your mortal money. 3 or 4, perhaps. Is that so much that he deserves this praise?
It isn't that.
said Scrooge, heated by the remark, and speaking unconsciously like his former, not his latter self.
It isn't that, Spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. Say that his power lies in words and looks, in things so slight and insignificant that it's impossible to add and count them up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune.
He felt the spirit's glance and stopped.
What is the matter?
Nothing particular.
Something, I think.
No.
Actually,
Oh, wait, we got these backwards.
I was going to say.
Oh,
Yeah,
It should be
let's
the
try
other
that
way
one more time with feeling.
oh.
What is the matter?
So wait, do I start
Yeah,
that?
you do.
I
What you
guess?
do with what is the
Yeah.
matter?
What is the matter?
Oh, I thought I was the one who had something the matter. Oh, I am. Nothing particular.
Something, I think.
No. I should be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now. That's all.
Sorry,
My time grows short.
observed the spirit.
Quick!
This was not addressed to Scrooge, or to anyone whom he could see, but it produced an immediate effect. For again he saw himself. He was older now, a man in the prime of life. He was not alone, but sat by the side of a fair young girl in a black dress, in whose eyes there were tears, and who realized that she had not in fact been cut from the edition as Arv had thought she was, and thus needed someone
that's
to be that
exactly what I
person.
was thinking. I was like, ah, there she is.
And
She's right
thus
there.
he brought
You
in
missed
little
her.
Arv to actually do that work.
It's for exposure, kid. Have fun.
It matters little.
She said softly to Scrooge's former self.
To you, with very little. Another ideal has displaced me, and if it can comfort you in time to come, as I would have had tried to do, I have no just cause to grief.
What idol has I will. That is.
I
not
mean, I
me.
thought you were gonna
No,
you were
that's
gonna
not
do
me.
the voice
Suddenly,
of young
I'm like
Scrooge.
just reading back and forth, and that's ridiculous. Sorry.
What idol has displaced you?
A courted one. You fear the world too much. I have seen your noble aspirations, thank you, imaginary voice, fall off one by one, until the master passion, gain, engrosses you. Have I not?
What then? Even if I have grown so much wiser, what then? I am not changed towards you. Have I ever sought release from our engagement?
In words, no, never.
In what then?
In a changed nature, in an altered spirit, in another.
This is narration, I think.
I think this is trending.
Oh, sorry.
No, she's 100% right.
Oh.
It's her still
Oh.
doing this.
Oh,
There
there
was
was
no
no
opening quote
there was no
mark on
right.
that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oopsie.
okay.
We'll shut up now.
Yep.
Another hope as its great end. If you were free today, tomorrow, yesterday, can even I believe that you would choose a dowerless girl, or choosing her. Do I not know that you repentance and regret will surely follow? I do, and I release you with a full heart for the love of him you once were.
Spirit, remove me from this place.
I told you. These were the shadows of things that have been,
Said the ghost.
that they are what they are. Do not blame me.
Remove me.
Scrooge exclaimed.
I cannot bear it. Leave me. Take me back. Haunt me no longer.
As he struggled with the spirit, he was conscious of being exhausted,
All right
and
then.
overcome by an irresistible drowsiness, and further of being in his own bedroom. He had barely time to reel to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep.
Brava, bravissimi, bravo, well done.
Who are we clapping?
And
And there was
for
no
you-
dog this time to mess
That's
things
right,
up. That was
exactly.
great.
Thank you, Little R.
Just
on you go,
some
Tren. I believe
people,
this is you next.
just some people from the peanut gallery who couldn't read properly. That's our fault.
Yeah.
Oh, is it back to me now?
Is indeed.
It's back to somebody now.
Oh, well, then I guess I'll.
No, that's the charwoman. Sorry.
Just wait, Mrs. Dilber, wait.
The second of the three spirits. Oh, awaking. I was like, a walking? No, there's no L in there.
A walking among the hills so
A
green.
walking Scrooge found himself in his bedroom. Well,
A walking.
A wimbo, a wee. A Scrooge, a bumblebee.
You guys are doing the wee anyway.
yeah, that's true. Anyway, awaking, Scrooge found himself in his bedroom, which we covered at the end of the last thing. There was no doubt about that. But it and his own adjoining sitting room, into which he shuffled in his slippers, attracted by a great light there, had undergone a surprising transformation. The walls and ceiling were so hung with living green that it looked a perfect grove. The leaves of holly, mistletoe, and ivy reflected back the light, as if many little mirrors had been scattered there. And such a mighty blaze went roaring up the chimney as that petrification of a hearth had never known in Scrooge's time. Petrification? No, petrifaction.
Petrifaction.
Petrifaction. Or Marley's, for that matter, neither of their times, or for many and many a winter season gone. Heaped upon the floor to form a kind of throne were turkeys, gross, geese, game, brawn, and great joints of meat, suckling pigs, long wreaths of sausages, mince pies, plum puddings, barrels of oysters, red hot chestnuts, cherry-cheeked apples, I prefer Granny Smith, juicy oranges, luscious despair, so delicious. Immense 12th cakes, which are similar to twice-baked honey cakes, but not, and great bowls of punch.
There are Marty's
There's the
bowels, finally.
Right, yes. And that just does not sound like a, never mind. I was going to say a sterile place to sit, but that's not the word I was looking for. Sanitary. Doesn't sound like a sanitary place to sit. Sure. Right. In easy state upon this couch there sat a giant, glorious to see, amazing, who bore a glowing torch, in shape not unlike Plenty's horn, and who raised it high to shed its light on Scrooge, as he came peeping round the door.
Come in, and know me a better man. That's not what it says at all. Come in, and know me better, man. I am the ghost of Christmas present. Look upon me in my glorious Hawaiian shirt. You have never seen the like of me before, eh?
Never.
Have never walked forth with the younger members of my family. That wasn't really a sentence, I don't think. Meaning, for I am very young. Don't look too closely. My elder brothers born in these late years,
pursued the Phantom.
I don't think I have. I am afraid I have not. Have you had many brothers, Spirit?
More than 1,800.
1800. Oh, tremendous.
1,800. Do I stutter, sir?
Unfortunately not. A tremendous family to provide for, quite. Spirit, conduct me where you will. I went forth last night on compulsion, and I learned a lesson which is working now. So tonight, if you have aught to teach me, let me profit by it.
Touch my robe.
What? He said, touch my robe.
Touch my robe.
See?
Don't you see that I am not afraid? Sorry.
Scrooge did as he was told and held it fast. But it's still me. Okay. The room and all its contents all vanished instantly. And they stood in the city streets upon a snowy Christmas morning. Scrooge and the ghost passed on, invisible, straight to Scrooge's clerks. And on the threshold of the door the spirit smiled and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling with its sprinklings of its torch. Think of that! Bob had but 15... Bob a week himself. I suddenly was like, I lost another line somewhere. Yes, Bob had but 15 bob a week himself. He pocketed on Saturdays all but 15 copies of his Christian name. Okay, that makes more sense now. And yet the ghost of Christmas present blessed his 4-roomed house. Who'd have thunk it? Then up rose Mrs. Cratchit, Cratchit's wife. Big surprise there. dressed out but poorly in a twice-turned gown, brave in ribbons which are cheap or were cheap.
Harv, what are you
Present
doing?
tense or past tense? He is making a mockery of this reading, as the three of us have not done yet.
I'm just listening intently, and I see Arvin Elrond just hit the dab for no. What?
He's rocking the dance floor.
We've had a different action in every single. Yeah. I was dying in the first part. Arv is dabbing in the second part.
It was just he said then uprose Mrs. Cratchit. They just had this image of like, hello, like welcome.
Yeah, but it was dab. I wish I would have caught that.
So, which are cheap or were cheap? I think it should be were cheap. But anyway, and make a goodly show for sixpence. And she laid the cloth, assisted by Belinda Cratchit, who was very similar to Belinda Carlyle, but nowhere near as good a singer. Second of her daughters, also brave in ribbons, while Master Peter Cratchit plunged a fork into the saucepan of potatoes and, getting the corners of his monstrous shirt collar, Bob's private property conferred upon his son and heir in honor of the day, in his mouth, rejoiced to find himself so gallantly attired, and yearned to show his linen in the no, that is not say responsible at all. His linen in the fashionable park. And why are those Capulated? Capulated? What is going on?
It's a good thing you weren't Montague.
We're missing.
Yes, exactly. We're in Shakespeare now.
We're missing a period there. I think is what happened.
Do you bite your
Why
thumb
is
at me,
this calculated?
I what would that even mean?
Do you bite your thumb at me, sir?
Oh.
It's obviously the name of the park. The park's name is Anne.
The fashionable,
Right.
fashionable park.
End.
Period is what we're missing.
Okay. And now
Well, don't worry, I'm not going to recapulate it. So
Right,
that's
thank
fine.
you. We might recapitulate it, but anyway. And now, smaller Cratchits, boy and girl, came tearing in. Finally, it's in the proper tense. Came tearing in, screaming that outside the bakers had gone to smelt the goose. Yikes! Is he like gone to smelt the goose? Is he like? Is he like a
He's
like
turning
a
it into a
part-time-
sword.
And
He's
he's a
smelting it
blacksmith
into a
the
sword.
rest of the year?
Yeah,
He was
smells
clearly
it.
playing Untitled Goose
Forging
Game.
the
It
goose.
was-
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And known it for their own, and basking in luxurious thoughts of sage and onion. Oh God, I'm so hungry.
That's really not a good thing to read while hungry.
I
At least
know.
you're not talking about wine anymore.
Yeah.
Shut up! I'm sorry. I mean, shut up. Okay, there we
Shut
go.
up!
These young Cratchits danced about the table far better than Mr. Fezziwig, and exalted Master Peter Cratchit to the skies, on high. While he, not proud, although his collars nearly choked, I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Vader, release him.
As you wish. Until the until the plow. No, slow. Until the slow potatoes bubbling up, knocked loudly at the saucepan lid to be let out and peeled like bells.
What has ever got your precious father then?
No idea.
Said Mrs. Cratchit.
And your brother Tiny Tim? And Martha wore it as late last Christmas Day by half an hour. Oh, and Rob said, as the girl,
Here's Martha, Mother.
Said a girl who sounded like Rob, appearing as she spoke.
and
Here's
speaking-
Martha, Mother. Martha, Mother. Look, look,
Really?
No!
look.
And then-
cried the two young
And Zach
Cratchits.
said, as the two young Cratchits together,
Hurrah! There's such a goose, Martha.
"Why, bless your heart alive, my dear, how late you are."
Said Mrs. Cratchit, kissing her a dozen times. And taking off her shawl and bonnet for give me that.
Dickens is going to send ghosts to haunt us all.
Right.
Yep.
Zach,
We had a deal.
okay, go, yeah, good,
Yes.
good.
We had a deal of work to finish up last night,
Replied the girl.
and had to clear away this morning, Mother.
Well, never mind so long as you come.
Said Mrs. Cratchit.
Sit ye down before the fire, my dear, and have a warm, Lord bless ye.
No, there's Father coming.
cried the two young Cratchits, who were everywhere at once. They were omnipotent, you see.
Yeah.
We are multitudes.
No, I'm just kidding.
Hide, Martha, hide.
So Martha hid herself, and in came little Bob, the father, although, yes, okay, well, with at least 3 feet of comforter, exclusive of the fringe. Is that what it says? It does, okay. Hanging down before him, and his threadbare clothes darned up and brushed to look seasonable, and Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Alas, for Tiny Tim he bore a little crutch, and had his limbs supported by an iron frame.
I think that's you, Trent. Bob Cratchit.
Is it? Oh, well, yes. Why, where's our Martha? Cried Bob Cratchit, looking around.
Not coming,
said Mrs. Cratchit. Not coming? Said Bob, with a sudden declination in his high spirits, for he had been Tim's blood horse all the way from church, and had come home rampant. Not coming upon Christmas Day? Martha didn't like to see him disappointed, if it were only in joke. So she came out prematurely from behind the closet door and ran to his arms. Oh, frabjous day, Kaluka. No, wrong point. While the two young Cratchits hustled Tiny Tim. And look, just give me $3.50 right now, and I promise I'll give you £5 tomorrow.
I don't care about your iron frame, Tiny Tim. Give me your money.
I tell you. And bore him off to the wash house. He just got home. And anyway, that he might hear the pudding singing in the copper.
And how did little Tim behave?
Asked Mrs. Cratchit when she had rallied Bob on his credulity. And Bob had, I've misread that as drugged, and Bob had hugged it to his heart.
This story took another turn.
Wow,
gracious.
Man. Okay, hungry, tired, and just as good as gold, said Bob, and better. Somehow, somehow he gets thoughtful, sitting by himself so much, and thinks the strangest things you ever heard. He told me, coming home, that he hoped the people saw him in the church because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant to them to remember upon Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see. Bob's voice was tremulous. What does that mean?
Essentially trembling. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And blind men see. Yeah. Bob's voice was tremulous when he told them this, even though I didn't read it that way, and trembled more when he said that Tiny Tim was growing strong and hearty. It's a weird cockscrow. Okay. His active little crutch was heard upon the floor, and back came Tiny Tim before another word was spoken, escorted by his brother and sister to his stool beside the fire, and while Bob, turning up his cuffs to 11, as if, poor fellow, they were capable of being made more shabby, compounded some hot mixture in a jug with gin and lemons, I want wine, and stirred it round and put it on the hob to simmer. Master Peter and the two ubiquitous young Cratchits went to fetch the goose because it had run off to kill a bunch of people in the streets again. Yes, precisely like that. Which when they soon returned in high percussion or procession or something.
I return in high percussion.
Playing some hi-hat, a little bit, couple toms.
Yeah.
Making some extra money.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mrs. Cratchit made the gravy ready beforehand in a little saucepan, hissing hot. Probably not like that, but Master Peter mashed the potatoes with incredible vigor. Mash. Exactly. He'd been watching Avengers recently. Anyway, Miss Belinda sweetened up the applesauce, perhaps with some gin. Who knows? Martha dusted the hot plates, which, okay. Bob took Tiny Tim beside him in a tiny corner in the tiny house at the tiny table. Two young Cratchits set chairs out for everybody, not forgetting themselves because that would be stupid, and mounting guard upon their posts, crammed spoons into their mouths. We don't know why, if there were anything on the spoons, or they just
Oops,
felt like
aren't
jamming
edible.
silverware, and yeah. Perhaps they were little wooden spoons, lest they should shriek for goose before their turn came to be held. Yes, well, all right, then, fine. At last the dishes were set on, and grace was said. Grace!
Get down here!
All the
Food's getting
cooking's done.
cold.
All the cooking's done. The places are set. You can get your lazy self down here right now and have yourself some, whatever. It was succeeded by a breathless pause. Like that. And Mrs. Cratchit, looking slowly all along the carving knife.
As opposed to all along the watchtower. No, we'll go.
Right. Yes. Prepared to plunge it into the breast. But when she did, she discovered that the goose had not yet been slain. And no. And when the long expected gush of stuffing issued forth, which you shouldn't cook it that way, just so we're clear. Cook the turkey or the goose first, and then the stuffing, and then put the one murmur of delight rose around all the yeah, it's cool. Kind of what it sounded like. And even Tiny Tim, excited by the two young Cratchits, okay, beat on the table with the handle of his knife. Rude. And feebly cried,
Sorry,
There
I didn't
never
catch
was-
that.
yeah.
Hurrah.
Yeah, hurrah. There never was such a goose anywhere, ever in the history of gooses.
And never again they killed it. It was extinct after that.
Precisely.
No more
Anyway,
gooses or geeses for anyone.
Exactly.
Always
Bob said he didn't believe there ever was such a goose cooked, because his goose was cooked. Its tenderness and flavor, size and cheapness, well, I don't know about that part, were the themes of universal admiration. I don't think really, okay. Eked out by applesauce, and mashed potatoes. Shut up! It was a
Not
sufficient
like
dinner for,
applesauce. Boo.
dinner for the whole family. Indeed, as Mrs. Cratchit said with great delight, surveying one small atom of bone upon the dish. Man, she's got good eyes. Oh, crap. They hadn't ate it all at last, yet every one had had enough. And the youngest Cratchits in particular was steeped in sage and onion to the eyebrows. So we eat them next. But now, the plates being changed by Miss Belinda, Mrs. Cratchit left the room alone, too nervous to bear witness, to take the pudding up and bring it in. Suppose it should not be done enough. Suppose it should break in turning out. Suppose somebody like David Warner should get a chance to clock it on the top and say, "A triumph, my dear," which was wonderful presentation. Anyway, somebody should have gotten over the wall of the backyard and stolen it while they were making merry with the goose. A supposition at which the two young Cratchits became livid. All sorts of horrors were supposed. And thus they forgot that there was even any pudding, and Miss Cratchit ate it all by herself in the kitchen. Hello! A great deal of steam. The pudding was out of the copper. A smell like washing day, which sounds really gross. That was the cloth. Okay, then that makes it all right. A smell like an eating house and a pastry cook's next door to each other. Yes, next door to each other, and a laundresses. Right, next door to that. Right, it's just probably not sanitary again, but that was the pudding. In half a minute, Mrs. Cratchit entered, flushed but smiling proudly, with the pudding, like a speckled cannonball. In fact, it may well have been a speckled cannonball.
I came in like a wrecking ball.
That's right. Especially freaky to hear that in a minor scale, or a minor key. It just sounds horrifying. So hard and firm, blazing in half of a quartern of ignited brandy, or it could have been gunpowder. Who knows? And
Was the speckled cannonball.
bedight,
Yes.
Bedight.
Bedight.
which means
Bedight.
which means
It's not
what?
bidet.
Essentially bedecked, like, covered with, decorated with.
Of course, like
Oh,
bedight.
Also, one quick note:
You
if
ever
it's
been
half and
bedight
half
before?
or half of a cordon, isn't that just an eighth?
I was
Or
thinking
no,
that was
no,
a
no,
very
16th,
long way to get to
16th.
that. Or something.
A 16th, right? Like half a
I'm,
quarter.
I'm already tired and
Anyway,
hungry.
sorry.
Don't make me do math.
Could you just get on with the bidet, please?
Oh, I guess so. Right. And no, that's not the right voice. And bedight with Christmas holly to stuck into the top or something like that. Oh, a wonderful pudding. I, Bob Cratchit said, which I am also Bob Cratchit, so I can say that. And call me too. Sorry. Oh, a wonderful pudding, I, Bob Cratchit said, and called me too. That he regarded it as the greatest success achieved by Mrs. Cratchit since their marriage. Which they have a few children, so it's probably been a while.
Oh, quite.
So good. She's finally getting good at making pudding. How nice. Mrs.
And
Cratchit
children.
said that it now the weight was off her mind, which she's cooking it telepathically or telekinetically, whatever. She would confess she had her doubts about the quantity of flour. Everybody had something to say about it, but nobody said or thought that it was at all a small pudding for a large family. Any Cratchit would have blushed to hint at such a thing. Oh, goodness me. At last dinner was all done. The cloth was cleared, the hearth was swept, the hearth was swept, and the fire made up. There, you look lovely, darling. Put a little bit of rouge. Right, there, okay. The compound in the jug being tasted and discovered to be cyanide now, and considered perfect. Apples and oranges were put upon the table, like one here, one here, one here.
God murders everyone.
And a shovel full of chestnuts on the fire because they couldn't afford coal. Then all the Cratchit family drew around the hearth. Look, I made a smiley face and I made a little stick figure in what Bob Cratchit called a circle. And at Bob Cratchit's elbow stood the family display of glass, 2 tumblers, and a custard cup without a handle. Right. And these held the hot stuff from the jug, whatever it was. However, as well as golden... Let me start that sentence again. These held the hot stuff from the jug, however, as well as golden goblets would have done. And Bob served it out with beaming looks. Oh, frabjous no. While the chestnuts on the fire sputtered and cracked noisily, screaming, help me! Then Bob proposed, should we finally marry since we have so many children? A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us. Which all the family re-echoed.
Merry
Christmas to us all, my dears.
God
bless
bless us.
Bless us.
Where are the potatoes?
You already ate them all, Peter, said Tiny Tim, the last of all. He sat very close to his father's side upon his little stool. Tiny. It was like one of those little pizza tables in the middle when you get delivered pizza, the little Barbie table. Anyway,
yes.
Bob held his withered little hand in his, as if he loved the child, which he had better, and wished to keep him by his, as if he loved the child and wished to keep him by his side and dreaded that he might be taken from him. Like, that's political, never mind. Scrooge raised his head speedily on hearing his own name. Mr. Scrooge, said Bob, I'll give you Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast.
Founder of the feast, indeed,
cried Mrs. Cratchit, reddening.
I wish I'd had him here. I'd give him a piece of my mind to feast upon, and I'd hope he'd have a good appetite for it.
My dear, that's cannibalism. You can't do that.
He deserves it.
He doesn't deserve cannibalism. Anyway, my dear.
How do you have any room left?
Thank you. My dear, said Bob, the children. Christmas Day,
It should be Christmas Day, I'm sure.
said she.
On which one drinks the health of such an odious, stingy, hard, unfailing man as Mr. Scrooge. You know he is, Robert. Nobody knows it better than you do, poor fellow.
Yes, that's true. However, his ghost, spirit, and whatever thing is standing right. Oh, right, we can't see him. Never mind. Everybody pretend like he's not here. My dear, was Bob's mild answer. Christmas Day.
I'll drink his health for your sake and the day's,
said Mrs. Cratchit.
Not for his. Long life to him. A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, you son of a... He'll be very merry and very happy. I have no doubt.
The children drank the toast after her, getting very tipsy.
Drinking
on
toast, I do not suggest. I've
Drink
tried it. Does
gin,
not work.
Yes. No,
Unless
they're
you
drinking.
blend it.
They're drinking gin and orange juice and some other stuff. Yeah.
At
So
least it
they're-
has orange juice in it, so there you
Yes,
go.
well, it's vitamin C
Perfect.
because there's no
Yes,
daylight,
exactly.
which is vitamin D. Whatever.
And they're vampires.
Yes, probably. Goes with the ghostly theme and everything. So it was their it was the first of their proceedings which had no heartiness in it, because they hadn't eaten any hearts. Tiny Tim drank it last of all because it was much too strong for his tiny little iron-framed body. Way too much gin for that little Englishman, but he didn't care 2 pence for it because it tastes disgusting. Scrooge was the ogre of the family. The mention of his name cast a dark shadow on the party, which was not dispelled for a full 5 minutes. After it had passed away, they were 10 minutes, not 10 minutes. They were 10 times merrier than before, from the mere relief of Scrooge the Baleful being done with. Bob Cratchit told them how he had a situation in his eye for Master Peter, which would bring in, if obtained, a full 5 and 6 pence weekly. The 2 young Cratchits laughed tremendously. That's so stupid! At the idea of Peter's being a man of business, and Peter himself looked thoughtfully at the fire between his collars because he'd gotten all golf, put them way, way up like straw. As if he were deliberating what particular investments he should favor. Well, let's see. Anything that is like a slow, steady. No, that's the stock market. Never mind. When he came into receipt of that bewildering income, Martha, who was a poor apprentice at the milliner's, then told them what kind of work she had to do, and how many hours she worked at a stretch, and how she meant to lie abed tomorrow morning for a good long rest, tomorrow being a holiday she passed at home. Also, how she had seen a countess and a lord some days before, and how the lord was much about as tall as Peter. At which Peter pulled up his collars so high that you couldn't have seen his head if you had been. All this time, the chestnuts were burning to death in the fire, and the jug went round and round and round because it was drunk. And by the by, they had a song. No one remembers what it was because of what they were drinking, but about a lost child traveling in the snow. I believe it was called Wildfire. No, that's about a horse.
Somebody find the child.
The snow
Lead
from
singer.
Tiny Tim, because, you know, he's just like Christopher Cross with an alliterative name. Who had a plaintive little voice and sang it very well indeed. There was nothing of high mark in this because everybody's actually kind of meh at it. They were not a handsome family. I'm up into Bob Cratchit's register again. Hang on. They were not well dressed. Their shoes were far from being waterproof. Their clothes were scanty. And Peter might have known, and very likely did, the inside of a pawnbroker's, but don't tell him that. But they were happy, grateful, pleased with one another, and contented with the time. And when they faded, looked happier yet in the bright sparklings of the spirit's torch parting. Scrooge had his eye upon them, and especially on Tiny Tim until the last. It was a great surprise to Scrooge as this scene vanished, to hear a hearty laugh. That thing there. It was a much greater surprise to Scrooge to recognize it as his own nephew's, and to find himself in a bright, dry, gleaming room, with the spirit standing, smiling by his side, and looking at that same nephew. What a shock! It's a fair, even-handed, noble adjustment of things that while there is infection in disease and sorrow, there is nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humor. When Scrooge's nephew laughed, Scrooge's niece. Yes, Scrooge's niece by marriage laughed as heartily as he. They sounded disturbingly similar. And their creepy assembled friends, being not a bit behindhand, laughed out lustily.
He said that Christmas was a humbug as I live.
Cried Scrooge's nephew.
He believed it too. Right? Whoever's playing the niece? Zach?
More shame for him, Fred.
Said Scrooge's niece indignantly. Bless those women. They,
I feel like that's her line, probably.
Yeah,
It's just
maybe.
What
about-
is? Bless
But
those
the-
women? No.
Yeah.
Bless the
No,
women.
this actually is the narrator. He's
Okay,
he makes
fine.
this extended
Okay.
comment about
What
this.
about for
right. Bless those women. They never do anything by halves. They are always in earnest. She was very pretty, exceedingly pretty, like disturbingly, unnaturally pretty, possibly of fey blood. Anyway.
Demonically pretty.
Yeah, well,
Vampire.
go that far. Perhaps, possibly vampire. With dimpled, surprised-looking capital face, like a Washington.
Capulated.
Ooh. A ripe little mouth that seemed made to be kissed. And no doubt it was. All kinds of good little dots about her chin that melted into one another when she laughed. And the sunniest pair of eyes you ever saw in any little creature's head.
Only Trent can make this into a Dark Souls enemy by like.
Well, I mean,
it's the last boss of Dark Souls. Yeah.
Right?
you know for a fact that if this poor man were still alive and saw some of the video games we played, that's exactly how he would have written this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Altogether, she was what you would have called provoking, but satisfactory too. Oh, perfectly satisfactory,
He's a comical old fellow.
said Scrooge's nephew.
That's the truth. And not so pleasant as he might be. However, his offenses carry their own punishment, and I have nothing to say against him. I mean, who suffers by his ill whims? Himself, always. Here he takes it into his head to dislike us, and he won't come and dine with us. What's the consequence? He don't lose much of a dinner.
Indeed, I think.
Who's Scrooge's nephew?
Scrooge's niece is...
Nephew. Who's Scrooge's nephew?
That's Fred, who the one who came in before. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Thought it was Cratchit. I mean,
No,
Bob.
that's not
Sorry.
Cratchit. It's Fred who came in like, Uncle, humbug, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
That guy.
Right.
Zach, we had you as the niece, I think. Somebody? Maybe?
She can do it if she wants to.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, it's just like, I don't know. Okay.
That's okay. Go ahead, she.
Do it.
Indeed, I think he loses a very good dinner.
Interrupted Scrooge's niece. Everybody else said the same, and they must be allowed to have been competent judges. Must be allowed to have been competent judges because they had just had dinner, and, with the dessert upon the table, were clustered around the fire by lamplight,
Well, I'm very glad to hear it,
said Scrooge's nephew.
because I haven't any great faith in these young housekeepers. What do you say, Topper? Topper, what do you say, Topper?
I don't know who bloody hell is Topper.
Speak up, Topper. The hell are you saying,
I
Topper?
clearly have my eye on one of Scrooge's niece's sisters.
Well, I mean,
I'm a little
the
busy,
reality
but
is we don't need to have Topper because the narrator can handle this because Topper doesn't actually speak in this one.
Okay.
That's all right. We need
Thanks anyway for
Topper.
the silent part, Topper.
we need to get on top of this.
Right. Topper clearly had his eye on one of Scrooge's niece's sister's roommates from college, for he answered that a bachelor was a wretched outcast who had no right to express an opinion on the subject. Whereat Scrooge's niece's sister's uncle's cousin's nephew's brother, the plump one with the lace tucker, not the one with the roses, no, blushed. After tea, they had some music. Nobody knows who made the tea. It was just suddenly there. It's English.
And nobody knows who made the music either.
Exactly. For they were a very musical family and knew what they were about. When they sung a glee, when they sung Glee for a catch? I'm not exactly sure what that is. When they sung a glee or catch, I can
When they
assure
sang a song from Glee.
Right. Yes, which wouldn't exist for another 300 years. Well, maybe a little less than that. But I can assure you, especially Topper, who could growl away in the bass like a good one and never swell the large vein in his forehead or get red in the face because he was horribly embarrassed of his speech impediment. But they didn't devote the whole evening to music. That would just be stupid. After a while, they played at forfeits because, somebody has to give up somewhere. For it is good to be children sometimes, and never better than at Christmas, when its mighty founder was a child himself. There was a gate.
God blesses everyone.
I know. Again, we're done. Yay! No, not quite. Okay. There was first a game at Blind Man's Bluff, though. And I no more believe Topper was really blinded than I believe he had eyes in his boots, which could be, there's a B and 2 O's, a T and an S. There's no I in the word boots, so obviously I'm correct. Because in the way in which he went after that plump, I almost said bumping, that plump sister with the lace tucker was an outrage on the credulity of human nature. Just horrible, nasty, disgusting. Knocking down the fire irons and irons as well, although that was probably in the show. Tumbling over the chairs, bumping up against the piano. They can afford a piano, but okay, whatever. Smothering himself among the curtains. Well, good, there, he's dead. Now we don't have to worry about it. Whenever she went, there went he. Wherever he went, there went she. He always knew where the plump sister was. He wouldn't catch anybody else. If you had fallen up against him, as some of them did, and stood there, he would have made a feint of endeavoring to seize you, which would have been a reply to an affront of your understanding, and would instantly have sidled off in the direction of the plump sister.
Here is a new game,
said Scrooge.
1/2 hour spirit. Only one.
It was a game called Yes and No. Very difficult to pronounce. Where Scrooge's nephew had to think of something. Oh, no. We're all dead. No. The rest must find out what. He only answering to their questions yes or no, as the case was. The fire of questioning to which he was exposed elicited from him that he was thinking of an animal, a live animal, rather a disagreeable animal, a savage animal, an animal that growled and grunted sometimes, and talked sometimes, and lived in London, and walked about the streets, and wasn't made a show of, and wasn't led by anybody, and didn't live in a menagerie, and was never killed in a market, and was not a horse or an ass or a cow or a bull or a tiger or a dog or a pig or a cat or a bear. At every new question put to him, this nephew burst into a fresh roar of laughter. Precisely like that, and was so inexpressibly tickled that he was obliged, not obligated, but obliged to get up off the sofa and stamp. At last, the sister cried out.
Plump sister.
I've found it out. I know what it is, Fred. I know what it is.
What is it?
Cried Fred.
It's your Uncle Scrooge.
Which it certainly was, because he is not a ass or a cow or a bull or a tiger or a dog or a pig or a cat or a bear.
Not be an ass.
Well, yeah.
I can get away with that. I can get away with that one off because it was in the book, so it's all right.
And he means donkey. Anyway, so admiration was the sentiment, though some objected that the reply to "Is it a bear?" ought to have been yes. Uncle Scrooge had imperceptibly become so gay and light of heart that he would have drank the unconscious company. Unctuous, not unconscious. Or is it unconscious?
No, it's unconscious.
Is it?
Because they would have no idea that he's there. Hunt's unconscious of his presence.
Oh, and not drank the unconscious. Drank
to.
to the unconscious. Very different sentence.
Come
He drank
forth,
their
Fred.
unconscious.
Again, we're back to the vampire.
Yeah,
thing.
really.
I mean, that's really where this revision is going.
It
I'm
really
telling
disturbs me that one of
The
the
third
great
act
works
is
of
getting
literature
ruined.
becomes Twilight in 2019.
Oh, okay. I gotta
Scrooge
go.
was covered in glitter.
Ooh, I have got to go. I'm out. Bye. Drank to the unconscious company in an inaudible speech, which wouldn't be the point. But the whole scene passed off in the breath of the last words spoken by his nephew, and he and the spirit were again upon their travels. Much they saw, and far they went, and many homes they visited, but always with a happy end. The spirit stood beside sick beds, and they were cheerful. On foreign lands, and they were close at home by struggling men, and they were patient in their greater hope. By poverty, and it was rich. An almshouse hospital, no, there's a comma there. An almshouse, hospital, and jail, in misery's every refuge, where vain man in his little brief authority had not made fast the door and barred the spirit out. He left his blessing and taught Scrooge his precepts. Suddenly, as they stood together in an open place, the bells struck 12.
Dong.
12.
Boom.
We'll just go with 12. There we go. That's good. Scrooge looked about him for the ghost and saw it no more. As the last stroke ceased to vibrate, precisely like that, he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and lifting up his eyes, beheld a solemn phantom draped and hooded, coming like a mist along the grounds toward him.
And it should be noted, by the way, that this is part of what we mean. One of the great sections of this story is where he shows want, and I think it's need is the want in somebody, I can't remember, that he shows the two children to
Yeah, I was going to
Scrooge,
say,
and
that's
then
right
repeats,
here.
and repeats his words back to him, like, are there no poorhouses? Are there no, so that's one of the great sections of the story. But again, you can't keep everything. So
And it's terrifying when it happens to
God,
some.
it's such a powerful line too. Okay,
So I shall take the narrator cap
exactly
now.
you are now as we move into the
Bravo,
concluding
Trendy, bravo.
section. Well done, Trent.
No.
Can only go up from here. No, I'm kidding.
Uh-huh.
Can only go down from here. I don't know. What's some direction? The last of the spirits. The phantom slowly, gravely, silently approached. When it came near him, Scrooge bent down upon his knee, for in the air through which this spirit moved, it seemed to scatter gloom and mystery. It was shrouded in a deep black garment, which concealed its head, its face, its form, and left nothing of it visible save one outstretched hand. He knew no more, for the spirit neither spoke nor moved.
I am in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come, ghost of the future. I fear you more than any specter I have seen. But as I know your purpose is to do me good, and as I hope to live to be another man from what I was, I am prepared to bear you company, and do it with a thankful heart. Will you not speak to me?
It gave him no reply. The hand was pointed straight before them.
Lead on! Lead on! The night is waning fast, and it is precious time to me, I know. Lead on, spirit.
They scarcely seemed to enter the city, for the city rather seemed to spring up about them. But there they were in the heart of it, on change amongst the merchants. The spirit stopped beside one little knot of businessmen. Observing that the hand was pointed to them, Scrooge advanced to listen to their talk.
No.
No.
Oh, sorry. I didn't want to do that. See, because you
was
kept
about to do
saying
it,
like I
too.
was giving you all the parts of being fat or something.
This
And I was
guy's
like,
fat. I figured, yeah,
I was
probably.
trying to avoid.
I was going to take it because I figured we didn't figure it out, but do you want me to do it or do you guys want to do it?
I'm going to do this one and then I'm going to drop out after that.
Okay.
Well, I'll do it.
You'll
All
do
right.
it.
We'll all do it.
All right,
No.
No.
All right, I'm gonna sit down and let you guys figure it out.
Okay.
2.
No, we're not gonna have all of us doing it collectively.
Arv, go.
No. I mean, yes,
Said a
I'm
great
going,
fat man with a monstrous chin.
I don't know much about it either way. I only know he's dead.
When did he die?
Inquired another.
Last night, I believe.
Why? What was the matter with him? I thought he'd never die.
God knows.
Said the first with a yawn.
What has he done with his money?
Asked a red-faced gentleman.
I haven't heard.
Said the man with the large chin.
Company, perhaps. He hasn't left it to me. That's all I know. Bye-bye.
Scrooge was at first inclined to be surprised that the spirit should... Scrooge was at first inclined to be surprised that the spirit should attach importance to conversation apparently so trivial. But feeling assured that it must have some hidden purpose, he set himself to consider what it was likely to be. It could scarcely be supposed to have any bearing on the death of Jacob, his old partner, for that was past, and this ghost's province was the future. He looked about in that very place for his own image, but another man stood in his accustomed corner, and though the clock pointed to his usual time of day for being there, he saw no likeness of himself among the multitudes that poured in through the porch. It gave him little surprise, however, for he had been revolving in his mind a change of life, and he thought and hoped he saw his newborn resolutions carried out in this. They left this busy scene and went into an obscure part of the town to a low shop where iron, old rags, bottles, bones, and greasy offal were bought. A grey-haired rascal of great age sat smoking his pipe. Scrooge and the Phantom came into the presence of this man, just as a woman with a heavy bundle slunk into the shop. But she had scarcely entered when another woman similarly laden came in too, and she was closely followed by a man in faded black. After a short period of blank astonishment, in which the old man with the pipe had joined them, they all three burst into a laugh.
And it's Zach is the charwoman. Let the charwoman.
Let the charwoman alone be the first.
Cried she who had entered first.
Let the laundress alone to be the second, and let the undertaker's man alone to be the third. Look here, old Joe. Here's a chance. We haven't all three met here without meaning it.
You're old Joe,
I think
Rob.
this is old Joe.
Ah, dang it. Okay.
Old Joe.
You couldn't have met in a better place. You were made free of it long ago, you know. The other two ain't strangers. What have you got to sell? What have you got to sell?
And this is Tren, I think.
Which is the other woman?
Right.
The laundress.
There's always another woman. Wait, what?
Mrs. Dilber, so.
Oh, okay.
Half a minute's patience, Joe, and you shall see.
And that's Zach.
What odds then? What odds, Mrs. Dilber?
Said the woman.
Every person has a right to take care of themselves. He always did. Who's the worse for the loss of a few things like these? Not a dead man, I suppose.
Mrs. Dilber, whose manner was remarkable for general Mrs. Dilber, whose manner was remarkable for general propitiation, said
Propitiation.
No.
propitiation.
It's that's the hair.
Propecia.
and stuff? Yes.
Propecia.
No, indeed, ma'am.
Propecia.
Do we think this is old Joe?
If he won't, if
no,
he
no,
just-
it's still
we'll
the
just all
charwoman.
exchange.
It's the charwoman.
All right.
It's still
Oh.
the charwoman. Yeah.
This
If
part
he
gets us
wanted to
every
keep
time.
Oh, it's the charwoman.
if he
I
wanted
know,
to
I'm
keep
sorry,
him
I'm
after
sorry.
he-
Go ahead.
I said, if he wanted to keep him after he was dead, a wicked old screw, why wasn't he natural in his lifetime, huh? If he had been, he'd have had somebody to look after him when he was struck with death, instead of lying gasping out his last there alone by himself.
That's Mrs. Dilber here.
Okay.
It's the truest word that ever was spoke. It's a judgment on him.
Why do we sound so similar, Mrs.
I
Dilber?
don't know.
Ah, I wish it was a little heavier judgment, and it should have been. You may depend on it. If I could have laid my hands on anything else. Open that bundle, old Joe. Let me know the value of it. Speak out plain. I'm not afraid to be the first, nor afraid for them to see.
Oh, it hurts me more. I got you two in stereo.
Joe went down on his knees for the greater convenience of opening the bundle and dragged out a large and heavy roll of some dark stuff.
It was pudding from 3 years before.
What do you call this? Bed curtains?
Ah, bed curtains. Don't drop that oil upon the blankets now.
These blankets?
We might have this backwards, but
I don't know
I think
who
this is
could
right.
just
I
keep
think
I
this
don't
is
know
going
right.
with
at
it.
No,
We'll
this
just
is right.
keep-
This is right.
yeah.
Whose else's do you think? He isn't likely to take cold without him, I dare say. Ah, you may look through that shirt till your eyes ache, but you won't find a hole in it nor a threadbare place. It's the best he had, and a fine one too. They'd have wasted it by dressing him up in it if it hadn't been for me.
Scrooge listened to this dialogue in horror.
Spirit. I see. I see. The case of this unhappy man might be my own. My life tends that way now. Merciful heaven, what is this?
I totally lost my place. Hold on, I got it.
Scene had changed.
The scene had changed, as had my voice. No, the scene had changed, and now he almost touched a bare, uncurtained bed. A pale light, rising in the outer air, fell straight upon this bed, and on it, unwatched, unwept, uncared for, was the body of this plundered, unknown man.
Spirit, let me see some tenderness connected with the death, or this dark chamber, spirit, will be forever present to me.
The ghost conducted him to poor Bob Cratchit's house, the dwelling he had visited before, and found the mother and the children seated round the fire. Quiet, very quiet. The noisy little Cratchits were as still as statues in one corner, and sat looking up at Peter, who had a book before him. The mother and her daughters were engaged in needlework, but surely they were very quiet.
Trent, this is Peter. I don't know. Just do the voice.
Okay.
And he took a child and set him in the midst of them.
Where had Scrooge heard those words? He had not dreamed them. The boy must have read them out as he and the spirit crossed the threshold. Why did he not go on? Spreading. The mother laid her work upon the table. Let me start that one more time. Serious voice, serious narrator. I'm the serious one. No, I'm not. The mother laid her work upon the table and put her hand up to her face.
Color hurts my eyes.
She said, "The color. Ah, poor Tiny Tim."
Better now again. It makes him weak by candlelight, and I wouldn't show weak eyes to your father when he comes home for the world. It must be near his time.
Past it, rather.
Peter answered, shutting up his book.
But I think he has walked a little slower than he used to these last few evenings, Mother.
I've known him walk with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder, very fast indeed.
And so have I.
Cried Peter.
Often.
Sir.
And so have I.
Exclaimed another. So had all.
But he was very light to carry, and his father loved him so that it was no trouble. No trouble. And there's your father at the door.
She hurried out to meet him, a little Bob in his comforter. He had need of it, poor fellow, came in. His tea was ready for him on the hob, and they all tried who should help him to do it most. Then the two young Cratchits got up on his knee and laid each child a little cheek against his face, as if they said, "Don't mind it, father, don't be grieved." Bob was very cheerful with them, and spoke pleasantly to all the family. He looked at the work upon the table, and praised the industry and speed of Mrs. Cratchit and the girls. They would be done long before Sunday, he said.
Sunday? You went today then, Robert? That would be you, yes.
Yes, my dear,
returned Bob.
I wish you could have gone. It would have done you good to see how green a place it is. But you'll see it often. I promised him that I would walk there on a Sunday. My little child. My little child.
He broke down all at once. He couldn't help it. If he could have helped it, he and his child would have been farther apart, perhaps, than they were.
Spectre,
said Scrooge.
Something informs me that our parting moment is at hand. I know it, but I know not how. Tell me what man that was with the covered face whom we saw lying dead.
The ghost of Christmas yet to come conveyed him to a dismal, wretched churchyard. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one.
Before I draw near to that stone to which you point, answer me one question. Are these the shadows of the things that will be, or are they the shadows of the things that may be only?
Still the ghost pointed downward to the grave by which it stood.
Men's courses will foreshadow certain ends to which, if persevered in, they must lead. But if the courses be departed from, the ends will change. Say it is thus, with what you show me.
The spirit was immovable as ever. Scrooge crept towards it, trembling as he went, and following the finger, read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name. Ebenezer Scrooge.
Dun dun dun!
Slotty Fardbar.
Am I that man who lay upon the bed? No. Spirit! Oh, no, Spirit, hear me! I'm not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been, but for this intercourse. Why show me this if I am past all hope? Assure me that I yet may change these shadows you have shown me by an altered life.
For the first time, the kind hand faltered.
I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me I may sponge away the writing on this stone.
Exactly thus. Holding up his hand in one last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. Thankfully, no one else's. That would have been awkward. The bed was his own. The room was his own. And best of all, his clothes were his own, we think. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own, to make amends in. He was checked in his transports by the churches ringing out the lustiest peals.
The pealing of bells.
Peals.
Ding, ding,
Oh,
ding,
God,
ding,
the
ding,
pealing
ding,
of the bells. Yeah, I do that every Tuesday. He was checked in by he was checked in by his bellman. No.
So
Good
close
evening,
now.
Mr.
We're so close now, Rob. Just
know.
hang it. Just keep it together for a little bit longer.
Well, little R wants to get to the line. Come on.
I know. I'm there. I'm doing it now. Okay. He was checked in his transports by the churches ringing out the lustiest peals he had ever heard. Key peals, to be sure. No, kidding. Running to the window, he opened it and put his head out. No fog, no mist, no night. Clear, bright, stirring, golden day.
What's today?
Cried Scrooge, calling downward to a boy in Sunday clothes, who perhaps had loitered in to look about him. Eh?
Did you say eh?
Eh? Eh?
Come again, young boy.
Eh?
Ah, what's today, my fine fellow?
Eh?
Why? It's Christmas Day.
It's Christmas Day. I haven't missed it. Hello, my fine fellow.
Hello.
Do you know the poulterers in the next street but one at the corner?
I sure hope I did.
An intelligent boy. I almost want to say clever girl.
Clever girl.
An intelligent boy, a remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there? Not the little prize turkey, the big one.
What? The one as big as me? There's a turkey.
What a delightful boy. It's such a pleasure to talk to him. Yes, my buck.
It's hanging there now.
Is it? Go and buy it.
Walker.
Walker?
Exclaimed the boy. Well done.
No, I am in earnest. Go and buy it and tell him to bring it here, that I may give them the direction where to take it. Come back with the man, I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes, I'll give you half a crown.
The boy was off like a shot.
I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's. He shan't know who sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim. Joe Miller never made such a joke as sending it to Bob's will be.
Pause. Little Arv needs to go to bed, but she wanted to show this other drawing she did, which says, come
in and know me
and
better.
better, and know me better, man.
Nice.
Know me butter. I can't believe it's not butter.
Thank you, my child. Good work.
Good night, good night, good night, good night.
Good night. Good work on the turkey stuff. Thank you, sweetheart.
Why? It's Christmas Day.
Farewell.
I should just come in.
It's Christmas Day.
I can't believe it's not butter.
Off to get the turkey.
Come and get to know me butter.
Remarkable boy.
Wait. Where the hell did we stop? Oh, the hand. Right.
Yeah, sorry.
The hand of the king.
One in the hand is worth two in the Scrooge. Wait, what? Sorry. The hand in which... Who else was in that bed? Anyway. The hand in which he wrote the address was not a steady one, but write it he did, somehow, and went downstairs to open the street door, ready for the coming of the poulterer's man. Try saying that 5 times fast. It was a turkey. He never could have stood upon his legs, that bird. He would have snapped him short of a minute, like sticks of sealing wax. Apparently he was a seal. What? Scrooge dressed himself all in his best. At last got out into the streets. The people were by this time pouring forth, as he had seen them, with the ghost of Christmas present, and walking with his hands behind him. Scrooge regarded everyone with a delighted smile. He looked so irresistibly pleasant, in a word, that 3 or 4 good-humoured fellows said, "Good morning, sir, a Merry Christmas to you." And Scrooge said often afterwards that, of all the blithe sounds he had ever heard, these were the blithest in his ears. You should probably get that checked.
So
in the
blithe.
afternoon, so no, he said, "To blithe," which means to bluff.
As we all know, is different.
Which we all know is in the afternoon. In the afternoon, he turned his steps towards his nephew's house. He passed the door 12 times before he had the courage to go up and knock. But he made a dash and did it.
DoorDash, here's your turkey.
Is your master at home, my dear?
Said Scrooge to the turp.
The girl. There you go. Nice girl. Very.
Yes, sir.
Where is he, my love?
He's in the dining room, sir, with his mistress.
He knows me.
Said Scrooge, with his hand already on the dining room lock.
I'll go in there, my dear.
Why, bless my soul!
Oh, bless my heart. Is it still beating? Whew. Cried Fred.
Who's that?
It's I
Yeah, it's you.
I just realized what
Oh.
I just realized. No, yeah, I just realized what happened when that person, when you shouted Fred, I thought it was still the. Never mind.
I did too.
Anyway.
That's why I
It's
said
supposed to be him.
It's your Uncle Scrooge. Excuse my voice a moment ago. I have come to dinner. Will you let me in, Fred?
I haven't eaten anything and my voice changes when I'm hungry.
I need a Snickers.
Not yourself.
Eat. Who's Fred?
This
let
is
him in?
actually the narrator. There's a quote
Oh.
accidentally there, but it is.
Oh, let him in. It is a mercy he didn't shake his arm off. Let's try that again, because I totally was not in narrator
Say,
mode
"Let him
at all. I was
in."
like,
What's
let
up,
him in. Let him in. It is a mercy he didn't shake his arm off. He was home in 5 minutes. Nothing could have been heartier. His niece looked just the same. So did Topper when he came. So did the plump sister when she came. So did everyone when they came. Wonderful party, wonderful games, wonderful unanimity, wonderful happiness. But he was early at the office the next morning. Oh, he was there. He was early there. If he could only be the first. But he was. But he was early at the office next morning. Oh, he was early there. If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late. That was the thing he had set his heart upon. And he did it. The clock struck 9. No Bob. 1:15. No Bob. Bob was full 18 minutes and a half behind his time. Scrooge sat with his door wide open that he might see him come into the tank. Bob's hat was off before he opened the door, his comforter too. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away with his pen as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock.
Hello.
Growled Scrooge in his accustomed voice, as near as he could feign it.
What do you mean by coming here at this time of day? Hmm?
Bob Cratchit, who's trending?
Okay, all right.
I'm
Say something.
going, I'm going to, sir. Please, for the love of Christ, be patient.
Have you lost your tongue, sir?
Well, no, I've actually had 3. It was a nightingale, but whatever. I'm very sorry, sir. I am behind my time.
You are? Yes, I think you are.
Mhm.
Step this way, if you please.
Oh, dear. It's only once a year, sir. It shall not be repeated. Certainly not this year, because there's only like 5 days left of the year. But I was making rather merry yesterday, sir.
Now, I'll tell you what, my friend.
Oh, no.
I am not going to stand this sort of thing any longer.
Hmm.
And therefore,
Narrator.
Oh, sorry, I completely lost track of where we were.
therefore,
Thank you. Scrooge continued, leaping from his stool and giving Bob such a dig in the waistcoat that he staggered back into the tank again.
and therefore I am about to raise your salary.
Bob trembled and got a little nearer to the ruler.
A Merry Christmas, Bob.
Said Scrooge with an earnestness that could not be mistaken as he clapped him on the back.
Oh,
A merrier Christmas, Bob, my good fellow, than I have given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavor to assist your struggling family, and we will discuss your affairs this very afternoon over a Christmas bowl of smoking bishop, Bob. Make up the fires and buy a second coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit.
Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all, and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend.
Just to clarify, who did not die.
Who did not die.
Yep.
He was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but his own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. He had no further intercourse with spirits, but lived in that respect upon the total abstinence principle ever afterwards. And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge. May that be truly said of us, and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone.
Everyone.
Yay.
Oh my God, we did it!
We did, and it was last year was I
We
believe 4
did
hours.
it.
This year was 2 hours, so it was definitely shorter.
Oh God, but here's the thing, I would, and I'm sure the video of it is somewhere because you save every video of your casts.
Yeah.
There was something great about doing the long version, but there was a part of me that was terrified when we were about 3 hours in and we were only up into the second ghost, and I was like,
Yeah.
the hell is going on
Well, the
right
thing
now?
is, like, there's great depth in that version where he's dealing with.
Oh, it's
like,
wonderful.
Like he talks with her, and like the actually in this, even in this last portion where he talks to the charity gentleman, and he basically says, and the guy's like, "How much are you giving me?" Basically, and he's just like, "Well, there's a lot of back payments in that." I mean, there's a lot of like really good stuff, and again, that part, especially at the end of the Ghost of Christmas Present, where he just repeats back to him like, how do you know? Like, there's also a section, by the way, in the past where he goes back to where he was a kid that everyone kind of ignored, and he was just by himself, and you get a sense of what might have driven
when he was
him
in
that
school.
way when he was just in school. So
Yeah.
there's like, there's great elements
Grinch
that
moment.
way. But it's the kind of thing, I agree, Rob. If we were going to do that, we'd have to start it earlier. And since
And I gotta
Dickens
tell you,
himself did this,
Trinity, I know it was hilarious, and I say this with nothing but love in my heart. That Fezziwig section is a pain in the ass, and even like I was listening to you do this one tonight, and I'm like, a lot of that stuff is there from what I remember, because I remember spinning through that section like a top when we read the full version, and I was just like, yeah, it's oh, man, reading that section out loud unrehearsed is not fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it is fun because the descriptions are amazing, but it's also just like,
We've
And pies.
we've done this how many times? It's like the
four.
fourth
I
time.
think this is.
Okay.
I think this is time
This is like
4.
also the fourth version of it that we've
Right.
read.
right.
So it's
Yes.
I think
Next year we're gonna read the vampire version.
Well,
Yes, we need
should
to read. We
decide
need to read
among
the
this
occult
group.
version.
I mean, we should decide among this group if we want to do it like on a weekend or something and start it earlier and do the full, or if we want to do the one that Dickens abridged. Because this is pretty good, I think. For you can see that the author was the one who abridged it. It's just it's too bad that it misses a couple.
I
of
think we
those
should
things,
plan a year out.
Yeah,
Get
that would be now.
get as many people from who have ever come through the hallowed halls of our vocalism, and
just
get
them
as
all
many
aboard.
people in to try to,
Cast of thousands.
I would love to do the full version again, but I would love to do it with more people.
I would totally love to do that as long as I have a chance to save up enough money to pay everybody for the cast of thousands.
We'll start a Kickstarter
Yeah,
or
there
something.
you go.
Yet another.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
For me, I don't mind which version we do as
Yeah.
long as I can get access to that copy at least a day in advance so I
Right.
can read through it, because
Right.
this is, I mean, it's so far out of our normal vernacular that cold reading this is very difficult.
It's hard, yeah. Mhm.
Oh, totally. And actually, so little fun fact about the last couple of times we read it, when the first time we read, because I think we read the full one twice, if I remember correctly, because we did the
Thank you,
really
Elias.
short version, and then the year after that, I was like, oh yeah, well, let's do this again. And that was when I realized we were reading the full thing.
Mhm.
And I remember, I don't think I started doing the narration. I think George
George did. I don't
was
remember.
with,
He did,
and then I think he left, and I took over for him.
something like that. I think we did. We may have done it 2 years where he did Scrooge the first year, and I think
Oh, maybe he
Trent
did
the
Scrooge.
second,
Yeah.
and then that was all that he could do.
But yeah, I
believe.
read that narration the way you just said, Trent, without having read a word of it.
and I was amazed that I didn't actually stumble through it more because I'm just like, oh boy, I am not ready for this.
I agree. Although, you know, I do have to say, and I know we've talked about this part before, I agree with you entirely that obviously it's a different vernacular. I have to say, though, having read quite a bit of work from this time, this is about as clear as you get someone writing within this vernacular. Like, there are people who are just literally obscure. You're like, what are you even writing? Like, what am I looking at? Like Henry James?
And-
Good God. Like, what is that?
Yeah,
It's
some
just
of it is
so
really
flowery
like
and decorated and like, but Dickens is.
I've lost the through line entirely. Yeah.
God, like I have to say though too, the other part when he's going that whole thing about are there no poorhouses and no prisons, like Dickens, you feel every bite of that because Dickens had crushing poverty and he heard shit like that. And so when he was saying this, you know, this was not like it's a fun little story. This is a F you to all the rich industrialists who think that they can do whatever the hell they want. Because London in the 19th century, I'm here to tell you, was as close to a heaven-hell dichotomy as you would ever get on Earth, even today. The poverty-stricken of London were literally almost like a whole different group of people based upon the way they were treated. So it's like, so that always really fascinated me. And I love the spirit of this, if you'll pardon the pun. I've always loved the spirit of this story. And you guys do a great job.
This was super fun tonight too. I didn't even know I needed this, but I needed it.
Yeah.
I feel
amen. I always feel the same
much
way
better
about it.
about lots of things now. This was very fun.
Yeah, totally. I've always felt the same way about it. And then it took us 2 hours. Like we started at 9, we end up at 11. So yeah, pretty much.
And I was laughing so hard at the beginning of when we started this tonight that my sides were fucking in pain.
Well, for some reason, I was dying at some point when I just the Mrs. Cratchit Rose thing. There's just some reason I'm like, let me dab here, and then Zach's like, what are you doing? I don't know. And my little arm is just kind of like, I don't know. I've never seen my dad do that. I was like, well, Merry Christmas. It was really. Oh man! And if I can just give a quick shout out to my wonderful, wonderful daughter. I have read this story to her for years and years, and you know, she's not a professional voice actress, but she has her energy and her focus is really, really good on this, you know. And I know a lot of 11-year-olds that don't have anywhere near the kind of engagement and interest and just hanging out and drawing pictures for 2 hours, listening to, you know, a bunch of us talk. So
that's awesome.
I'm biased, obviously, but she's such a great kid.
Teaching 11-year-olds, I would agree.
You know what I'm saying? You're right. You're the expert. I mean, like So anyway, I'm very proud of her, and I was glad that she did that. And thank you, Izzy. That's very kind of you. I really appreciate that. So, and as far as the voices, she's got you, amazing actors to do that. I'm incredibly blessed to have this wonderful group of players and performers and voice artists. And so they did a great job. And if you think
I thought the guy who played the Ghost of Christmas Future did an amazing job.
He did, absolutely. Well, I think sort of the pointing,
MVP of the evening. Give him the award for just
and the sort of gradual tremble of the finger.
The arch of the point. Oh,
yes, exactly.
I was terrified.
Can we also get a shout out for Mrs. Dilber, who didn't even know if she was Mrs. Dilber for half of the scene? Like that.
No, we can't.
Really kind of.
But clearly, MVP stands for Most Valuable Phantom.
Yes,
that's true. That's true. You didn't give Charles Dickens enough voice role this year. I know, Coven. Like, you know, we gotta get him more involved.
But he's right here. Look, we got him on Twitch.
Thank you,
He's
Charles.
now become officially the oldest streamer on Twitch.
That's very true. If you like Charles Dickens, make sure you check out his work. I would recommend you start with this. Great Expectations, Nicholas Nickleby, David Copperfield, Tale of Two Cities, and please don't forget Bleak House, which, side note, is one of the great books ever written. It is unbelievably good. So
Twitch.tv / nothing but the Dickens. Go follow him right now.
Yeah, exactly. But thanks to Mr. Dickens for being a wonderful writer and writing this wonderful story. Moving right on up the line, thank you to Zach for doing a great job in this as well. Zach, you did a wonderful job.
Bravo, man.
I really enjoyed that. I love the fact that everyone's had a chance to play Scrooge and just really nail his transformation. You haven't played Scrooge yet?
I've never.
I think I tried to give you Scrooge at some point. All right, well, you're up next, Rob. You're going to be Scrooge next year. You're going to be up next. But Scrooge
aging into it gracefully.
Yeah, there you go. You start with Hamlet, you end with Claudius. That's the way it goes. But no, But
everybody ends up in Lear eventually.
Scrooge's transformation was always my mother's favorite too. The whole kind of like, oh, remarkable boy. Like she used to love that whole changeover, and that was a lot of fun seeing you do that. So great stuff. It was fun. Great job as all the other roles, including the Charwoman. Yeah, that was huge, and so on. So how'd you feel about tonight? Where will the lovely people see you next, sir?
It's always great reading this, and I think when there's art like this, you kind of, as you're reading it, you're like viewing your own life in a certain way. So like you're seeing Scrooge and his own shortcomings, and then how the spirits are showing him how he could end up. It's easy, very easy to like put that perspective on your own life as well. So it's like really that's why I enjoy it too. We were all talking about how it's like really nice to read, and also because of the language too. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, that was very fun. I enjoyed it. The fine people can find me, and only the fine people can find me.
They should get
no one else can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/ZachClay at the start of the year, and then on YouTube soon enough in a similar location and URL, hopefully. But yeah, I'm excited, and can't wait for Esper Genesis, and then to do this again in approximately a year.
Yeah, that's right. And Esper Genesis, by the way, will be coming up this Friday. This Friday when we will return to a special Christmas edition where the crew must find Santa Claus in Sector 77. No, I'm making it up. It's not,
a special the day Star Wars comes out.
Exactly. And I actually got tickets to see it precisely because I'm like, you know what? We're going to actually start that. It's Esper Genesis. It's a space opera. And we will absolutely get people coming in and being like, you know what happened when Darth Sidious was actually a porg? And, like, that's how that's going to work. So I'm actually going to see it. But I'm really looking forward to it.
That was a sentence I did not think I was going to hear tonight. Okay, cool.
Darth Sidious, Darth Porg. Anyway, it wouldn't surprise me. We'll see. Hopefully it'll be good. But, yeah, great pleasure, Zach. Thank you as always. And you folks should be following this man and following his stuff and his material. And thank you, sir, very much. Always appreciated. Moving right up on the line, Rob, great stuff as well, as always.
Thank you.
Always,
I had a lot of fun doing that,
and it's always a good time to have you back and to do this thing. Of course, Rob's with us all the time with the Arvocalists, but the Christmas Carol is just it's its own special thing. So I think it was really cool to have you back and doing it. How'd you feel about tonight, and where will the lovely folks see you next?
Well, it was quite lovely. If you don't mind a little bit where I had no idea what voice I was going to do for the first spirit, so I kind of just made it up as I went along. I think it worked out, but I truly even the description of it was kind of like, so it's a young boy but an old man, so somewhere in between. So I was kind of like, I'll play him a little flippant, why not? So a little bit, I was going to tell you that, but you didn't really want to listen. Oh boy, here we go. It was a little bit, then there's been wild interpretations of all the Phantoms before. Maybe one of my favorite being that guy that hilarious actor who I can never remember the name of, who played the Ghost of Christmas Past and Scrooged, the one who drove the taxi cab. Why I cannot remember his name, but I think he's a New Jersey native actor, or at least he's some New England original. Yeah, he's
I have to think about
he was just great. By the way, Scrooged is not a good movie. It is a guilty pleasure movie. It is a terrible interpretation of this novel, of this story of Dickensian everything. It's like strips away the vast majority of the stuff that you get from reading this, but still it's very funny and it gets the big beats of it right. So I would definitely recommend it if you like Bill Murray. I
Buster Poindexter was the
I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, he's
good catch, God.
Let's go. We're gonna go show you your past.
He's just
Ghost of Christmas Past.
Yeah,
David Johansen.
Oh.
So it's not
there you
Buster
go.
Poindexter.
No, but that sounds right.
Yeah.
So whatever. Yeah. But anyway, as for tonight, that was just really fun. And I always love doing this with this group because we always have fun with it, and we make silly interjections and still have a good time doing it. And it was fun. And I personally believe, especially in this crazy world that we live in nowadays, that the more miserly, more curmudgeonly, just more
Yeah, I think appropriately worded dickish members of the Billionaires and Millionaires Club should be required as part of their excessive wealth to be visited by 3 ghosts at least once during their time,
100%.
just as a reminder that maybe they should stop being such assholes.
Be real fun to
sometimes.
see Jeff Bezos, for example, just happen to get a visit, or
Zuckerberg. Send him to Zuck. Yeah, that's the one
Zuckerberg
I was
first. Yeah, for sure.
He might be a little young for it, but you know what? He'd figure it out. But yeah, no, I really had an absolute pleasure, enjoyed doing this, especially since I've been really, really exhausted of late. Just been sort of burning the candle at both ends, leading into the holidays. Don't get a break until Christmas. So yeah, this was really, really fun, and I'm very lucky that I get to say that I've done this with you guys now 4 times, and you know, Cthulhu willing, we'll be able to do it again, you know, next year.
Amen,
so,
man.
Cthulhu be praised.
It's good stuff, and
those are tentacles.
Definitely check out Rob and all this stuff as well.
Yes, and you can find me on twitch.tv/GCDarksideRob. I was taking like a week off because I just was, like I said, I've been between D&D and this and Arvocalists and my stuff and work and everything and the holiday season, and I still have packages that I need to buy and Christmas cheer and mirth and you know, fa la 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 and all that stuff. I've been really busy. So, but I'll be back on my BS tomorrow with some Divinity Original Sin 2 and other fun holiday games and whatever. So follow me there. Thanks. You guys have been an amazing audience, and happy holidays to all of you.
Happy holidays, Rob. Good stuff, man. And yeah, what's up, Joey's Jr.? When I played Dishonored 2, very nice. Good stuff. And yeah, thank you, Uncle Elias, for all the gift subs. I'm going to talk about that at the end as well. Quick note, I'm actually being serious. I think you can make a good argument that the best Christmas Carol version, and there are many. I mean, Patrick Stewart is great. I mean, there's many versions that are great. I swear to God, the Muppet Christmas Carol is among the best ones you're going to see. I always say that, and I'm always like, if people are like, really? I'm like, I swear to God. First of all, Michael Caine is a really good Scrooge. Secondly, they kind of play it straight. I mean, it seems bizarre, but like they actually kind of play it, a lot of it straight. And the puppet that is actually the Ghost of Christmas Present is surprisingly good. Like, it's startling to me that it works that well. Now, again, it is Muppets, so there's some gonzo appearances, and it's not Fezziwig, but Fozzie who plays Fezziwig and whatever. So, but it's surprisingly good, and it's an example of how good this story is, that it can sort of take that without sort of losing the overall message. So anyway, it's good stuff. Hey, what's up, Brahms? Hope you're feeling better, man. Okay, so anyway, yes, but thank you, Rob, so much great stuff. And last but certainly not least, thank you to Tren, who has done this with us. This is the 4th time and has played many of the parts that exist within the the story at this point. I don't think you've played Scrooge's niece by law. I don't think you've played her yet, and there've been a few others like that you may have missed, but you played a lot of them. So yeah, it was fun to hear and see, and I was enjoying, even though we were kind of like cracking up half the time, that we had some forward momentum nonetheless. So how'd you feel about tonight? Where will the lovely folks see you next?
I hated it. No, it was good. I knew like an hour before we started that I was getting hungry and I should probably get something to eat.
Yeah, just not.
And
had the goose and the pears and the
and it just got worse, and it got to the point where I was imagining what they probably tasted like, and I was like, old paper. That's what they taste like in my brain, because it's like trying to eat the book. But then I started, unfortunately, imagining what they probably smelled like, and for some reason scent is a stronger sense for me,
right.
And everything lit up. It was like Scrooge walking into the main room, and the Ghost of Christmas Present is there with that whole array, and I was like, oh God, I'm so hungry.
Know my food better, man.
Oh, man.
Would you like some?
Was it Ignorance and Want?
Ignorance and Want, yeah, it was those two. God, it's such a good section.
And in the I just knew his name moments ago as I started the sentence. I knew his name, and it wasn't Michael Caine. It was one of the other guys who played Scrooge.
Is it the BBC production?
There's Arthur. What's his name?
Jim Carrey.
Scott. There's Scott. There's Jim Carrey.
Yeah, Arthur C. Scott.
It's Arthur
George C.
Scott.
George C. Scott.
George C. Scott. That's it. Yeah.
That
Who's
one.
the famous one. Yeah. My
That one's
mother
great.
always said Alistair Cook. That was the one that my mom always said was her favorite, especially because that transformation scene is so good. But I mean, the truth is, like, it's sort of like if you're given the role of Hamlet, you generally ought to knock that out of the park. Like, I feel like if you're given the role of Scrooge, you ought to nail that part at that point, because like it's got so much depth to it, you know.
Yeah. But with the George C. Scott version, that was the first time I remember seeing the Ghost of Christmas Present open his robes and show the children.
Yeah.
And fucked me up.
Yeah.
I almost stopped. I was like, nope, I'm done. I almost turned off the TV.
Yeah.
Because not only, I mean, they did a great job making the kids look withered and gone.
Awful.
Their eyes were sunken in, and I was like, and I thought I didn't think that they were hiding under his robes. I thought those were his legs.
Oh, wow.
That was how he traveled, was on the feet of ignorance and want. I was like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. And so everything started falling apart in my brain. I was like, I don't want to follow this story
also
anymore.
Creepy, yeah.
But very, very enjoyable, even with the neural breaks that happen throughout the thing, which is, as I mentioned before, is just because I hadn't pre-read it. And I'm sure it would be a lot easier if I read it in advance.
We shall consider that better next time.
You better.
Yeah. Well, remind me if I forget.
Then you'll be like, well, I haven't decided which version we want to do.
No,
Like,
now I
pick
will.
one.
I'll just
one.
ask people. I'll be like, long or short, you know. So.
But
Make a Google survey next time.
Right. It's just a Google survey with two options, long, short. It's split 50-50. What do we do? And then, well, long, short, and what are you talking about for somebody who's brand new to the Arvocalists? And they have no idea what that was.
Exactly.
Anyway, where will people see me next? Given recent history, probably in about 4 hours here on this channel. No.
Not quite that soon.
Not quite that soon. It'll be on Saturday, I believe.
Yes.
For yet more adventures in the subjugation of Strahd.
Speaking of ignorance,
Barovia,
because of Strahd.
Where let's see, where did we leave off?
I do hope there will be a little less yelling this time.
No promises. That's all right. Yeah, we just gotten back to the tower, and Weller spent the entire time repairing his robes.
Yep, and he's kind of laid out, you know, the
progress was made.
Found the Tome of Strahd, and you've kind of like
yeah, and all that,
where to go, yeah,
and blah blah blah, and what to do next, yeah. Yep. And sure, yeah, none of us have a cart anymore.
No,
so
you have many pieces of one.
Yeah, we could probably make one. I still want to know where Von Rictavio's cat is. I mean, that tiger doesn't just vanish. You know, where to go. Anyway,
well, it depends on how close to the explosion it was.
No, it's probably no. He wasn't in there because we checked and made sure there was no meat. I'll bet it's Agatha. I'll bet it's Agatha.
Shh.
I'll bet she's the tiger. Tiger, like a tiger. Right.
Tiger.
So anyway, I need to go eat. Clearly, because my brain is malfunctioning. Malfunction.
Parallax.
That's from the transporter accident scene in Star Trek: The Next Generation. Not
Yeah.
The
I
Next Generation,
thought
Star
that
Trek.
might be what that was from.
Yeah.
Oh God, one of the most hard.
I ran from the theater, man.
Why did you have to make that scene? Is another story for another time.
Yep, absolutely. But not for tonight. This long.
But just speaking of horrifying things, real quick, the George C. Scott film, My Marley Tonight, was a little bit fashioned after that. Because
Marley was very solid, by the way.
Thank you. That Marley, I didn't actually really understand that character until I saw that performance, because I was like, whoa, okay, yeah,
because he's not just kind of like hi, I'm the ghost to tell you that there's other ghosts. Like he's also a ghost who, you know, is
Next
not messing
year,
around.
Bob Marley. That's how we're doing it.
Bob Marley.
Bob Marley.
Yeah.
No, Ebenezer, we jamming. You know, we
really
jamming with you.
We gotta go. We gotta get out of here.
Too. Anyway,
hey, chat.
great
Thank you so
pleasure.
much for watching. We're gonna shut this down now. Arv has left the building.
It's
Thank you
very
so
true.
much.
Thanks, everyone. Great stuff. Gentlemen, wonderful work. Chat, can we get some love for the amazing Arvocalists again? Trendane, Rob, Zach, we will see them in this capacity next month. I will see, however, Zach on Friday and Trent and Rob on Saturday for Esper Genesis and Curse Strahd, respectively. Thank you. Happy holidays.
Merry
etc.
Christmas,
And see
Happy
you
Hanukkah,
soon.
Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year, even though we'll see you again before the New Year.
Correct.
Yeah.
Farewell.
Ta-da!
Bye.
Ta-ta!
And that, ladies and germs, is going to do it for me for today as well. This was a great, great pleasure. And I do want to thank, by the way, some of the people who made it possible with the resubs. We're actually up to almost 70 subs now, thanks to the wonderful gift subs that a lot of people gave. Our goal by the end of the year is 80 subs. We're now only about 10 subs away from that. We have a number of streams left to get there. So I really could not be happier with that. It's very much appreciated, very cool, very awesome, very everything. So thank you all so much for doing that. And thank you, Elias. It's good to see you. It had been a little while since I'd seen you, more on here, and I was very glad to see it. So thank you for being here and all that good stuff. But that is going to do it for me. I've got a lot of grading to get done tonight a little bit. I'm going to do some before I head to bed, and then I got more grading to do tomorrow on my last class, which ironically is Revenge Tragedy. They just had their finals yesterday, so Ignorance, Want, and Revenge Tragedy. So I've got that going on. My daughter has her Winter Solstice performance, another theater production with her school, which will be Thursday evening. And then Friday, I'll be watching Rise of Skywalker, and then we'll be seeing you guys, actually buying Christmas presents, Rise of Skywalker, Esper Genesis, and then Saturday we've got Curse of Strahd. And then after Curse of Strahd is done, I am here to tell you that I am going to go on about a 2-week really enjoyable break. I'm going to stream and play video games with you guys. I'm going to read my Eberron Rising from the Last Stand book, which I'm going to do completely for pleasure. I'm going to do 0 writing, 0 grading, 0 school, anything at all. I am going to hang out, play games, hang with the family, and read. I am looking forward to it in the worst way. It is going to be great, so I can't wait. And I might do an episode talking about Rise of Skywalker. We'll see. I do have my Game of the Year stream, of course, which is going to be coming up, where I'll talk about my games of the year that I've played for the first time this year, whether they came out this year or not, and then my games of the year that I played and that also came out this year, because I have to break it down into those 2 lists. So I'm going to be doing that. It's going to be good times. I'm really excited. So is Santa coming for both your kids? Santa is coming for the little one. My older one now is now sort of morphed into the role of part Santa herself, which is kind of really cool, actually. So, and yes, time to let the brain ferment a while. Really, Arudinel, it's just time to rest. I need to rest. But again, playing games with you guys really is kind of rest for me. Organizing and doing all the stuff of gathering everyone together and herding the cats that, this involves is not always that way. So, you'll notice that after the 20th, I have a lot less of that. Masters of the Dungeons is just me and Dot. I do have D&D with viewers that'll be up there, but otherwise it'll be a lot of solo streams, and that'll be cool because I can just chill and relax and everything else. So it'll be a good time. But that is going to be the deal. I'm looking forward to it very much. And again, I want to thank everyone who gifted subs and did all that stuff today and who were here to share this wonderful thing. I do want to mention just very quickly, I saw Miranda's comment about this being like kind of basic Christian theology. And there is something to that, but the story is a lot richer than that, honestly. I could imagine people just reading it as like, so do what God's will. But there's way more to it, to the story than that, I think. Dickens himself would have believed that there is a kind of just a basic human dignity that needs to be upheld, and people who really, as they say, keep Christmas in their own way, leaving aside the religious connotations, do so for reasons of kindness and compassion and community, which is frankly what I've tried to build this channel on from the very beginning. And so, I know what you mean, but I think that there's more to it than that. And one of the things I love about this story is that it doesn't feel prescriptive, that you can have, Rob is Jewish, right? And you can have him do this story and not feel like, this thing is excluding him, because it's a story that really deals with the poor and doing the sort of indigent, and it's broader, I think is what I would say. So that made a big deal. Your nomination's winning. Oh, that's cool. We shall see. I cannot take sides. I cannot tell sides. Help, I'm feeling oppressed. But no, it was really a great time. I really, again, love this particular session in the year. I love the traditions that we have anyway, and I really enjoy that. And it's cool that my daughter is old enough now that she could be a part of it too and sort of, do it along with me. So it's a lot of fun. Anyway, that is going to do it for me. We are going to do a raid today, and the way that we do raids is very simple. If you are not a sub, you're going to do this. Right, exactly. Across morality. Yeah, exactly, Miranda. You got it. That's exactly right. The Arvocalists have landed, followed by Twitch raid. Lowercase Twitch, uppercase R, lowercase AID. Yeah, maybe not Sears for much longer either, right, Knight? They might be less over time. So we've got that, and if you are a sub, then the Arvanuts have landed, followed by Arvane Hype, ARVANE, uppercase H, lowercase YPE. This icon is Arvane Hype. So if you can type that in, just cut and paste that, except ARVANE Hype, right after you get brought over auto-magically to the channel that we're going to raid. That would be great. And let me just confirm where we're going to go today. Going to go somewhere today. I don't know where it is. All right, let me see. Who can we go to? Oh, I see where we can go to, actually. I know exactly who we're going to go to. Okay, cool. But that is going to do it for me. I want to thank everyone for being awesome. Don't forget about the channel. To follow the channel, check out the YouTube, the Discord, and the Twitter, !, ArvTube, !, ArvCord, !, ArvTweets, respectively. Don't forget about the website, arvanellarun.com. Please jump on board with the shop, ! ArvShop. A lot of cool merchandise for you. A lot of cool merchandise that you can get that will help support the channel. Excuse me. Good night, Rob. Thank you so much for everything, man. You can also support the Patreon, as we had another person jump on board. This is starting to go back up again, which is good to see. 323 now, so we're climbing our way back up, which is awesome. So please jump on board that, because it's the financial backbone of the channel, and that makes a difference too. Cool stuff for you and cool stuff for the channel. And last but certainly not least, that sub button. As I said, we're up to about 69, 70 subs, so we're closing in on that end of year goal, which is great. And I am excited to see what 2020 will bring, which is going to be a busy year, but not for a few weeks. Like I say, for a couple of weeks after the 20th, basically after Curse of Strahd finishes on Saturday the 21st, I'm going to be chilling a little bit, and I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good time. But I want to thank everyone who made this an awesome stream. Thank you to my wonderful mods today, Rudinell, who was here for everything, Coven Guy, who was here for all the streams, Rock God, who was here for the evening ones. Thank you as well to Echo Alpha, to GC Darkside Rob, to Nightwolf, Marinda, Mrs. Dunsel, and Uncle Elias. Thank you so much for all the gift subs today, for Coven Guy, on GOG, for Uncle Elias here as well. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. You are all lovely people, and I really appreciate the support. Thank you to my wonderful viewers. Thank you to Aiton, to Brahms, to Chat, Commander Root, Joey Jr.'s Variety Channel. Welcome back. To Levas. What's up, Levas? Welcome back to you too as well. Thank you to Let Me Play, to Magaxa. Thank you to Mubot, I guess. Thank you to Poltergeist Zero, Second Obs, Scum Shop, Trendane, U Christensen, VNK, Virgo Praz, Windsock, and Zaneki Bear. Thank you all for being a wonderful audience. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you again to my wonderful performers today. Thank you to Trendane, thank you to Zach, and thank you to Rob, and of course thank you to my own daughter, Little Laura, for doing great stuff as well. Yeah, I know, Coven, my God, like you've been all about that streams today, but I appreciate it. Thank you all so much, and thank you everybody. Again, I will say this, of course, many times before we get there, but just again, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Festivus, Happy whatever, Happy Holidays, and much love to all of you. And I will see you lovely folks on Friday for Esper Genesis and perhaps a little bit of a discussion of Rise of Skywalker 2. We'll see how it goes. But that's going to do it for me. Much love. Stick around for the raid, and I will see you lovely people soon. Until then, God bless us, everyone. Have a good night.
In the spaces of my broken dreams, my soul sits high and proud. Here was the castle of my grand old reign. Here was the fortress of my love. This empty ruin sits in falling rain. It's all been blasted from above. And all my past was just a show. As good as it's been, well, that's the last of it, I'll know. If everything I've gained was going to be lost, why would I risk myself at this cost? And all the speed with which I found your love, well, that's just how fast it's gone away. And in the sky I see a broken dove, and now there ain't no more to say. Although confusion is my constant friend, a friend now isn't so kind. I thought I'd have you until the end, yeah, but having is a state of mind. Look out there, you'll see a cold hard land where sun and peace it used to reign. Without the touch of your guiding hand, well, you know it's never been the same. And all my past was just a show. As good as it's been, well, that's the last of it, I'll know. If everything I've gained was going to be lost, why would I risk myself at this cost? And all the speed with which I found your love, well, that's just how fast it's gone away. And in the sky I see a broken dove, and now there ain't no more to say. Bards and poets sing of sweeter regrets. Well, all the same, they've got it wrong. I haven't sucked the sadness in me yet, yeah, but I tell you that it won't be long, long before I fell to a wealth of good inside, surplus of happiness to give. But bitterness now